I'm Moshe.
And I'm Polly.
And this is The Human Collective. Welcome back to another episode of the show. This is episode 9. We have a very special guest tonight. I'm not going to screw this up. Dellaneira.
Yes.
Woo! Good job.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So Dellaneira is a professional dancer and a patriot and
Definitely.
a proud American.
Absolutely.
And also someone who is incredibly well-versed in the pharmaceutical industry, the process of getting a drug patented and approved to go to market.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to start the show. I'll kind of let you introduce yourself a little bit now, but we'll start the show with pharma and then naturally go into a number of other topics, political, social, that sort of thing.
Yeah. I just heard a door.
Yeah,
Or
I
something.
think we've got a ghost in the building.
It's
No, it was the wind. Okay, so yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, long story short, I think at this point in my life, I'm a dancer, but I'm many things. I'm not just a dancer. I'm a professional. I am I love painting, and that's something that you also know
She's
about.
an artist, beautiful artist.
So there are many things that I do, but one of my biggest passions have been dancing. Mainly right now, I only dance for the sake of helping other people or, just for self-awareness. If you want to learn dancing, this time is important to me. So I like to just help people. I think my last performance actually this year was back in March. I did a performance for charity, Charity for Air. And it's... Dancing has been a great part of my life. It's a de-stressor. It's just, it takes you to a different level when you're performing. And I've done it for maybe 20 years at this point.
And we're talking about belly dancing
Yes.
specifically? Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah. So it's been belly dancing. I started when I was 15 years old.
How did you get into that? What was...
My mother is part Turkish.
Okay.
And I remember being 15 years old. And of course, back then, Shakira was still a very big thing in Latin America.
She's still a big thing.
And
Yeah,
she's still a big. I mean,
absolutely.
she's still a very big thing. Don't get me wrong.
Did you see the Super Bowl thing? She's going to be on the Super
Yes,
Bowl.
and
I'm
I'm
so
very
excited
excited
for it.
about that. I don't watch football.
She doing it with Beyonce?
No.
She's doing it with Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah.
Oh, Jennifer Lopez. I'm sorry.
It's like-
Completely different.
It's like Latinos are taking over in my over Miami on Super Bowl, and I'm actually for the first time excited. So I
good
don't
thing.
really watch football a lot, but if I do, I'm definitely watching this one.
Who's your team? Are you a Eagles fan?
Oh boy, that's a tough question. I guess
Please
I'm
say you're an
going-
Eagles fan.
So I'm gonna have to disappoint you. So
Not me.
Me? You're going to disappoint me.
So I'm a huge hockey fan. I'll start with that one.
Okay.
And I'll ease you guys into it. But I'm a huge Boston Bruins fan.
Okay. Interesting
Okay.
choice.
Okay.
So
I like their logo.
I love their logo.
Yeah.
So with that being said, while I do not watch a lot of football, it's not something that I grew up really watching a lot. But if I do have to choose a team, it's the Patriots. So
What?
I mean,
Oh, all right. Show's over.
you're going with the best in the business.
so I'm just
You
saying.
too?
Well, you can't. I mean, they're undeniable.
Oh, guys,
So
come
I'm
on.
just saying.
You're from Philly, born and raised. Like, you're from Philly.
But I hold no
Well, boy.
loyalty to any team.
But it's Philly.
But it's any team. And last time I checked, I ended up picking, I think, the best teams out there. And
Yeah.
I'm like, no, that's a really good team. I mean, I, have
I
to
got a
say
record.
it.
I see.
I
What
mean,
have they got?
yeah.
10? How many Super Bowls
We
have they
don't gotta
won?
count it, guys.
It's
Come
like
on.
you can't even count on two hands.
I think the Bruins have, 6 Stanley Cups?
Is that
I
right?
think so.
I don't know.
I don't
think
really
about
follow
hockey.
hockey.
I had to double check. But I think the last one they won was, 2011, I think.
Okay.
So it's been a couple of years.
Yeah.
But it will be nice to see them again, win another Stanley Cup. So let's see.
I'm sure it'll happen before the Flyers.
You just hating on Philly.
The Flyers aren't
You guys
bad.
are awful.
The Eagles aren't bad
People
either.
were like born.
No,
Philly.
I
You guys
think,
are different.
Yeah.
bottom line is that, and to be completely honest, and for the record, I do have to admit that the Eagles were hungry. And-
Yes, they
and-
were. You're talking about the year they won the Super Bowl?
Yes, 2018. Yeah.
Was it 18? 17?
Was it?
17 or
17? It was
No,
2 years
2
ago.
years ago.
Yeah,
Alright.
because
So
it
we're
was the
19,
Rams
yeah.
last year.
Yeah.
It was LA, which they're a new team. That was interesting that they ended up winning. But I think you're right. The Eagles were, they're always been viewed as underdogs.
Mm-hmm.
So they had it.
Yeah.
They had it. It was a new coach, newly sculpted team, and they took it all the way.
Took it. And you
dog
mentioned
head.
Intimate. They were hungry, and when
Yeah.
when you're starving for that goal, to achieve that one big thing, that almost, I think they were the only team that didn't have a Super Bowl win.
Yeah.
Were we?
Yeah,
Well,
no,
that
they went
sucks.
to the Super Bowl in
When McNabb.
Yeah. What year was that?
No,
14?
I don't think McNabb got to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
got
he
there
did.
and then
Did
we
he?
lost. What year
Yeah.
was that?
Was 2008?
No, please don't say it was that long
It was a
ago.
while
I can't
ago.
remember. It was a really
It
long
might
time
have
ago.
been.
Yeah, I remember
And-
McNabb. He was a good quarterback. He could run too. He
And
was.
I think it was with him, and I know that they made it and they lost
Against
That
Patriots,
was
right?
in the,
Yeah.
maybe.
And there was
Probably.
one other time in the
Probably.
past where the Eagles went to the Super Bowl, but this was years ago.
And that was before
Yeah, that was
everything
before
was
my
formed,
time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I know that for sure the Eagles had not really won a Super Bowl, so for them to really get to this point, it was
a big deal.
It was a big milestone.
Yeah, and also for the city, you know.
Yeah.
It did a lot for the city. I think it just uplifted the entire morale
Mm-hmm.
of the city.
For 2 years straight.
Yeah,
it
it's
was
like-
amazing.
Yeah.
I know.
Unfortunately, things have changed.
Now we're at each other's throats again.
the last game, they lost their last game, right? It was kind of it was brutal, I
It
heard.
wasn't too bad. It was kind of close, right? It was like 20 to 24 or something like that.
Mm.
It was 27.
Are they still in it? Like, do they still have a chance, or is it donezo?
I don't know. I think they still have a chance.
Any sports fans that we have right now watching the show are ripping their hair out of their
How do you guys
head.
not know
This
this?
is like first
Stats. Sorry.
All right.
I remember. I'm not really. I actually worked for the NFL for a little while.
Did you?
Yeah. Well, I worked for Fanatics, and they do all the apparel for all major league sports. And I remember everyone at work was playing fantasy football, and they were trying to get me in to play it. And I'm like, I don't know anything about football. I don't really follow it, whatever. And my brother was living with me at the time, and he walks in the door and he sees me on my computer signing up for fantasy football. He's like, what are you doing? The look he gave me was like, dude, shut your computer. You should not be playing fantasy football.
Because they all go against like stats, right? It's all
Yeah,
stats on different
it's-
players. You got to make your own team.
You have to
It's
be
a
like
lot.
married to this thing to
Yeah.
make it work. You're trading players and
But you can make money off it. Like they make bets off
They
their own
actually
team.
make yeah.
yes,
They do.
absolutely.
know.
There are some people that are really committed to this.
Yeah, but you can the league that I was in. There was like a pool. So at the end of the season, whatever the pool was, that's what you took home. It was just one winner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
So anyway, that's that.
All right.
Okay. What were we talking about before I went off?
So
to
we just
Eagles?
kind of just derailed
Yeah.
into like sports talk, which I'm pretty sure people are like, yeah. But not like just to we digress, but to come back. So what I wanted to do, well, first of all, thank you for inviting me. And
Oh, absolutely.
secondly,
Thank you for being here.
What I wanted to do is that one of the aspects of I loved learning about the pharmaceutical industry. I think that is a fascinating industry. When I'm out in the streets or I'm reading social media, which I try not to be completely honest, I really try not to.
Okay.
One of the things that you constantly see is people complaining about the cost of medications, and we have a forever increasing cost of medications, which I'm not saying that it should be regulated at some point. It needs to come to that at some point, and hopefully sooner rather than later. What I am also a bit disappointed on is that many people who are also perhaps just reading on the cost increases of medications are not also looking at the cost that it takes to develop these medications. And it is a long process, and I was hoping that maybe if you can at least provide a bit of background information, even if it's just on the high surface of it,
Yeah.
that it at least helps individuals
Educate people. Yeah.
It's educational, and it helps people better understand. Okay, it's not that they're just pulling up a cost out of someone's butt, so to speak.
Yeah.
But it's mainly the fact that there is a process. When you understand the process, you can kind of take a step back and you go, you know what? You don't have to agree, but at least understand where it comes
Yes.
from, and there's a huge difference. For one of the things, and I just like a quick roundup here. Research and development, and this is like a very high summary of it. So what I want to get into is that the first step into a drug is actually developing it. It's actually, you know, you discover this drug, you are doing a research for any particular disease, and you discover a drug, and you go,
Okay.
huh. But now you have to validate it. Discover, validation. That is literally your first step into, you know, creating something that could go wrong, or it could go great and it could be a hit.
Right. Okay.
So you have discovery and its validation. Now you move into step 2, right? Step 2 is preclinical. So before you can do anything with the FDA, before you can jump into a clinical trial or whatever people paint sometimes in, like, you know, in movies, etc., there are protocols you need to follow.
Right.
Preclinicals being one of them. And this is pretty much, you either have an option A, which is, you know, you're doing it in vitro, which means everything is being tested on a test tube.
Okay. Not on humans.
Not on humans.
Okay.
That is preclinical.
How about animals? Is that
in vivo does include animals.
okay?
Or live, like still molecules, like.
So if it was a live animal and they're testing a medication, is it primates, or I mean, does that
They're
matter?
different.
Okay.
They're
Mice.
different.
For each medication to see how it affects, right? Because certain animals.
Oh,
sorry. Because certain animals like mimic different humans differently.
And to be completely honest, you know, primates. Dogs. I've seen dogs. Not seen, but if you go recently online, there was an article about a pharmaceutical firm, I believe in Germany.
Okay.
And unfortunately, someone caught the firm pretty much doing like a massive mistreatment of animals that were being tested. Monkeys being one of them.
Yeah.
So yes, animals, you know, are part of this testing. You have, you know, either like I said in vitro, where you're doing the test, you know, the test tube, you know, etc. However, what we're not looking at is like you still need to test something that's live. We need to have an actual reaction.
Yeah.
And
but it doesn't have to be a physiology similar to humans. Ideally, would in the R&D process, are primates ideal because they're closest to, you know,
yeah, but I think
human biology?
I would say because of the human biology, I would say that they might be perhaps the ideal. And this is just me just doing a hypothetical, yes.
Yeah,
It's not a
there's
guaranteed
They're
one.
more expensive, I think. Also, there's like a lot of people who have, you know, concerns about that. So I think they have to start really small. I think they have to start with like mice and those type of things before they can even get there, even if they were going to.
Okay.
And so like, it is... Is it hard to swallow if you're an animal lover? Yes, absolutely. The fact of the matter is, I love animals.
Yeah, same.
But it's at the same token, you know,
you got to try it on something before humans.
You got to try it on something before you try it on humans.
Absolutely.
And that's what it really boils down to. So you have this process, and you have.
I'm so sorry. Tyler is he's commenting on it, so we have some questions for you afterwards.
Oh, okay. So our listeners are chiming in,
and I'm like reading what he's saying, and I don't.
Did you call him Taylor again?
Oh, God.
Pretty sure he's Tyler.
Sorry. Yeah, so he has some questions for you. So
sure.
We'll pick it up after you finish. I'm so sorry. That's what I'm like smiling about.
Now you have collected all of this data that takes, you know, a couple of years, and then you take it to the FDA, and the FDA goes, "All right, I'm gonna read this." I'm going to read this information, and if I don't like it, I'm telling you, go back and do it again.
And it's that cut and dry.
And it's pretty much very that cut and dry. The FDA does have the power to approve or disapprove, you know, what they call a drug application. And this is just correction, an application.
So there's probably some bureaucracy behind that, too.
So you have,
grease the right people.
Yeah. And it's pretty much one of those things, like you're applying for this drug, the FDA, and again, high summary, the FDA says, okay, you've done everything. I'm looking at this data. I'm reading the data. I'm okay with it. You can now proceed to quote unquote clinical trials.
Okay.
Now, clinical trials are divided into 3 stages.
Okay.
Phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Phase 1 is a very small pool of people that are gathered and they're relatively healthy.
Okay.
And this is the point, but I mean like a small pool of people, maybe a very few dozen. Mm-hmm. And with this, what you're looking at, the selection is, you know, mainly safety. That will always, during a clinical trial, that will always be the number one thing. safety.
So this is phase 1?
This is for any phase within the clinical trial.
Is this like when you see, like a lot of college students will do these trials just to make a little extra money? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
In essence, so if you're a relatively healthy person, what they want to do is just really test, are there any side effects? How is the body discharging of this medication? What are the results that are being produced by this medication?
Okay.
This is all data that has to be collected. So there are a lot of people involved in this process, and this is just on a small scale. So the data is good, it's great, it's been successful in this first phase 1. You go into phase 2. Phase 2 now is actually collecting the people, or the test subjects, or the trial subjects who are actually afflicted by the disease.
Got it. So this is actually to see if it treats them now.
Yes.
Okay. So if it's a diabetes medication, now they're actually trying it on diabetic patients.
Yeah. Because now they can truly, now they have what happens to a very healthy person. They know they got data from there, but now they really need to discover how is it going to impact the person that's actually afflicted by such a disease.
Okay, so phase 1 is just basically to see if there's, like you said, adverse effects, like
reactions, what is going on. Now that it was tested, we can go, okay, you know what, we're good here. I think that we have enough data to.
Is that like when you see these drug commercials and they talk about the side effects, and some of them are pretty terrible. It's almost comical. There's projectile diarrhea and all kinds of stuff.
Listening. Sorry. No, he was saying the side effects was brain damage on a medication that gave the wrong strand for malaria, which is crazy. Wow. Brain damage was the side effect.
And this is where, chemical trials, clinical trials really step into. They really, unfortunately, you can test on a test tube or animals, but at the end of the day, the human trial aspect of it, whether we like to admit it or not, is when we really get to find out.
Yeah.
How any one person reacts, and this is all being taken in. This information is being jotted down. It is a requirement. You need to find out what's going on, when it's happening, why it's happening.
Right.
So once you start testing, the afflicted individuals with the disease, this is a bigger pool. Not as large, but it's a bigger pool. And you're still looking at the safety aspect of it. I'm just going to move my notes. And you're still looking at the safety aspect of it. You still want to make sure that these people are safe. And now you have, again, a large group of people that are involved in the process of this. And again, the monitor process pretty much remains the same. Adverse reactions.
Yeah.
What is going on? Did this person react better? Is it an age difference? There are a lot of things that really start to be noted down. Again, data that has to be collected. This is important.
The second stage.
This is the second stage.
No, second one.
So go ahead. No,
I have
continue.
my own question. People that have, with diabetes, a lot of people have with diabetes, people also have other illnesses, comorbidities. Are they tested in trial 2 or trial 3? Or is that still
So that's interesting.
Okay.
So by trial 3, this now involves just a lot more people. So now the pool has been expanded to hundreds of people, if not, perhaps a bit more. There are more people involved in these trials. Again, trial 1 is just healthy people, very small number. Trial 2, people afflicted with the disease, larger number, but not as large.
Okay.
Stage 3 of the clinical trial, phase 3 of the clinical trial, that's when you get the massive trial. This is where it really gets very expensive, because now you have a major multitude of people that are being tried for this particular medication, and the data that you're gathering, again, is way larger. You're not just looking at, people in, I don't know, Northeast Philly. You're looking at people,
national,
across country, national.
Yeah.
It's a lot more expensive.
Yeah, because they have to monitor stuff to be
you
safe.
Have to
monitor. And they have to pay. They're paying these
and you're
people.
actually, paying your subjects.
And the subjects and as well as scientists.
Exactly.
And the people who are
the
processing
scientists, the processes.
Yeah.
If you're hiring a CR, if you are the sponsor, which will be the pharmaceutical firm.
Do these pharma companies, say there is an adverse effect, someone's doing the trial, and like our listener said, maybe they get brain damage or something really terrible. do they compensate these people or help treat them, provide, care for that? Or is it like, well, you decided to do it, you took the risk, and how does that work?
That interesting enough, I would say, I dare say that's a legality issue, which I don't dabble into.
Okay.
People obviously are signing in, and they're signing this trial process, and by all means, just so that you're aware, sometimes these binders are about maybe like this big before you enter a trial. It's not like a small pamphlet.
Yeah.
It's a lot of information that people have to sit down and read over before they opt to go into the trial.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about military, like trials on military subjects?
I do not know that.
Because Tyler was talking about that too. He's like, they got a lot of test bed for military people in the military.
Yeah, and
I know there's like endangered, certain populations that are endangered. Like kids, you have to be really careful with kids. There's a lot of protocol for kids, elderly, people in prison. Those type of people, I know there's like a lot for clinical trials, but I don't know anything about the military.
My dad told me, this was back in, the 70s, but my father was in Vietnam. He's passed away now, but I remember him telling me they would line these guys up, and if they had a vaccination or whatever, once a week they just stick them in the ass with a needle, and they didn't even tell them what it was. It was like, you need this, bing, 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 and that was it. So who knows what they were getting.
I mean, you never know. And to be completely honest, when it comes to military, you're also part of the U.S. property. Let's just know what it is.
Yeah,
that's true. You sign your life away.
And it's like, so if I want to inject you kind of with this,
so be it. Commanding officer says so. Sorry, Tyler, that sucks. You're part of the show tonight, buddy.
Hi, Tyler. Sorry, hi. But yeah, and so again, just. You have like this phase 3, and this is where the bulk of the data is now fully collected.
Okay.
This takes years, by the way. This can take anything from.
Is there a minimum?
No, there's no minimum.
So it's just once the requirements, I guess, are met, that's when. Yeah. How does that work?
So for research, when you're talking about research, and you're talking about developing a drug that could potentially either help someone, cure someone. The process itself takes, it could take 5 years before you actually take it to the FDA and say, hey, I want this drug application. I want to try it out. Like it can vary. And very honestly, it can actually vary. Maybe it takes slightly less, but the whole process from, this trial to, discovery trial, it takes a good maybe 10 to 15 years.
Is that about the average?
That's about the average.
Wow.
That's a long time.
It's a long time. And what people now, think about what I just said, 10, 15 years up to phase 3, maybe even now getting into the whole NDA, which is a new drug application.
Not a non-disclosure agreement.
Not a non-disclosure agreement, but a new drug application. Now, you're talking about, also so that you are aware of this, there are fees associated with submitting this application to the FDA. Like, it's not free. It's not free.
Right.
There are patents involved. There's a lot that goes into this. Patents are not cheap. Patents
Especially
can easily cost, like $15,000 to $18,000. And I cannot fully recall if that's just the average. I'm not exactly sure what happens if it's a pharmaceutical patent. That is something that actually I'm working on, honing more into the knowledge of. So happy to share with you guys individually at some point.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But this is costly just by you hiring a CRO, which is a clinical research organization. If you're going that route, and getting the subjects, or obtaining subjects, hiring additional people if need be, so that they are monitoring this large scale trial for you. And then they're going to give you this data. Now, you're still the sponsor, so you're still responsible for anything that goes wrong with this medication while it's on trial. This is your sole responsibility, regardless of what the CRO is doing. The responsibility is yours. There's a lot of cost involved here. From the time that it leaves the lab at whatever manufacturing facility for whatever particular pharmaceutical firm is developing this drug, it's money costing to pay the scientist, to pay the people that maintain that lab, to pay the people. It's a never-ending cost.
So on average, are we talking hundreds of thousands or in the millions?
I'm talking millions.
Yeah. Okay.
The cost of doing all of this is millions.
Yeah.
And they're putting the money up front because they're not making anything
You're
back
not
yet.
really making anything when you're actually.
Yeah, I was going to ask about investors. There's probably people that invest just in the product before it goes to market, I guess, just to get a percentage of the profit once it does actually become a sellable drug. Is that?
That's a question that I would cautiously answer later.
Okay.
And mainly because I've never really heard of it, or at least in my studies. So I'm not going to go out there and say yes, and I'm not going to say no. I need to really understand, what, if it's legal or not legal. That would be the better question. So let me actually find that out for you guys, and I'm more than happy again to share. Like these are, you know what? As a matter of fact, I should probably have a pen.
It's all recorded.
Yeah.
It's all recorded. You know what? Never mind. Let me go back. Like, remember that question?
Yeah, because that's kind of interesting. Just if there are people that bank on, like imagine an AIDS medication, and say the company that's trying to develop this drug runs out of cash. An investor could say, "Hey, I'll back you guys. I'll help keep things going, but I want a piece of the pie once it goes to market."
Well, it depends. Are we talking about a large pharmaceutical firm? Because I would dare say, and again, this is just my assumption, that the pharmaceutical firm, because it is their sole responsibility, getting other people involved that is not the firm itself could possibly also be risky.
Okay. Legally, you mean? Or
possibly legally. Yeah.
Okay.
That's how I would see it.
Yeah.
But again, I'm very happy.
Because it's like, what's the liability? Who?
But again, I would want to, sit down and just really give you a very detailed answer that maybe you guys can share afterwards.
Okay.
And just say, hey,
we could do a follow-up.
Yeah.
So normally what we do on this show is, this is definitely a more in-depth conversation than we normally have with our guests, but that's just because we're really interested in it.
And you know so much.
Yeah. But we normally will do a follow-up on Friday or Monday and kind of recap, and maybe if there's some more information that comes to light. So if we could get that, we'll share it with you guys.
More than happy to share it with you guys. I just want to make sure that who I'm providing the information to absolutely makes sense. I'm actually looking at your screen.
Yeah, you see, it's like a mirror.
Yeah, this one.
I'm looking at the comments.
Oh, this is actually over here. These comments. There's a lot of them.
We'll do a segment toward the middle of the show where we can take questions and you can answer them.
So like
we're
I said,
in a process right now.
Yeah, we're in a process, and we only got to the new drug application process now.
Phase 3.
No, it's after phase 3 clinical trials, right?
Not phase 3 already passed. Now you're actually going into the NDA, which is the new drug application.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
So the FDA says, "Great, got a new drug, perfect."
Yay, everything went well.
I need information before I can even go into the approval of this. I need to have a lot of information from you, and I'm not talking 50 pages. I'm talking about thousands of pages of data, information from, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, who were the subjects, what was any adverse reactions, any reporting, anything that happened during the phase 1, 2, 3. I need all that information. I need all of it, everything. And rest assured that if the FDA is not happy with what they find, they will either flat out deny your new drug application. So that means that after you spend all of this money,
oh my gosh, you can't do anything.
You can't do anything about it because the FDA said no.
Can you appeal that?
I believe you can.
Okay. So it's not like once they shut you out, that's it. You got to pack up and go home.
And it hasn't happened very often. It's not something that actually happens. I mean, once you are gathering all of this data, it's fairly solid. There's very little room that they have left out for mistakes because they know what is really at stake here.
Right.
So they're very cautious about, what have we provided needs to make sense to the FDA. If the FDA see that it's not making sense to them, they will not approve it.
Okay, I gotcha.
Now, what they can do is the following is pretty much what they do is they may not fully approve it, but they might actually say, I have a question. And they send you a letter.
Got it.
And they might say, section XYZ of your, application, we have questions and we need more data on this.
Yeah, so that you can have time to go fix it, gather your data,
So
and represent
they
it
need
again.
to provide, at that point, a pharmaceutical firm needs to provide more information. The FDA may look at it, they may be appeased by it, and they say, okay, you're approved, you have our blessings.
Yes. Let's make some money and help some people.
But
it's a win-win.
We're not done.
Oh!
Not really done. We're getting there, but we're not really done yet. So the NDA has been, accepted by the FDA. So now what we have is what they call, now they're granting a prescription drug use.
Okay, that was pretty much
user fee.
Yeah, but everything up until this point is pretty much the hardest part of this whole process, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So at this point, the prescription drug user fee is pretty much set by the FDA. Once they accept the NDA, I think it's like 10 months out. And that's pretty much for them to do like the full approval. Like once they accept your new drug application, they have about 10 months to really go through everything they're going through before they say, okay, we think everything is fantastic. You're good to go.
Yeah.
And they'll usually wait that 10-month period.
The whole time.
The whole time. So that, once they, give you that full approval, then your drug is automatically ready to go into mass production in the market. Again,
now, during this 8-month period where they're waiting, are they actually producing the medication at this point and getting it packaged and ready to roll?
I'm being squished here.
Ayla,
Sorry. Ayla,
our mascot's causing some trouble.
There's a planning. You want to start planning on the mass production of it. Obviously, if you start the way that I recall it correctly, what you want to do, and that's part of the phase 3 process. Like when you're in phase 3, you're almost certainly know that you are about to, go into mass production. And
Gotcha.
in doing so, a pharmaceutical firm is going to start planning on that mass production, because until now, you've only produced this medication only for the trials.
Mm-hmm.
But once you're sending that application, pretty much right before that, where the thing is, well, approved, prior to that approval, they're going to start planning how fast, what are the details. Again, you still have to keep in mind that this is, good manufacturing practice, and we need to make sure that these medications are following protocol regardless of.
Right.
Again, more people, not necessarily more people, but, the employees of this company, what are the mass productions of it? What are the deadlines? How soon can we get these medications out?
It's a lot of logistics going on there.
There's a lot of logistics going on.
Yeah.
And, they have the blessings of the FDA to say, go on and do your thing.
Mm-hmm.
They have enough, but you still need more, because now you're pretty much expanding this nationwide, worldwide, depending on, whom you're also sending the application to, if you want the drug to also reach, other countries. And
this is, talking about this, it kind of makes me wonder where they're actually producing it, like if it's done in the U.S. or if they're producing it in China. I know that India and China are big
India
for...
and China are, at least for, that I recall correctly, for the U.S., I believe most of the medications are either produced here. So you have, and I think I'm hungry. And I did just say this live. I'm a little hungry, so if my memory serves me correctly, you have the United States, European Union, Europe, and Japan as being the top, the top producing firms of medications in the world.
Quality, right? Because that was a big issue, I think, with some drugs being produced in China, or it was either China or India. I read an article about this, that their standards of practice were not great. Like, so
pretty much, like, you have these like 3 main the European Union and UK and all these people involved in, and you have like I said, the United States, and you have Japan as being the top producers, and they have actually created like this this group that actually looks for the safety and the quality of the test subjects. So I would say no, you're not going to have the medication being shipped off to China to be produced there. Okay. That will be, I'm not saying that there's not a location granted, you can only mass produce but so much here. Like you have, firms do have different massive locations for very specific reasons. You had to, do a supply and demand, and a location here in the U.S. can only supply but so much here. You need somewhere else. You need something somewhere else. It's just the logical thing in the logical.
Like Viagra, for example. I'm sure that's all over the place.
I'm pretty sure. Who invented Viagra? What firm was it that invented Viagra?
I'm not sure, but I was a podcast that I watch with Jordan Belfort, the guy who The Wolf of Wall Street was based off of.
Yes.
He has a podcast, and one of his biggest sponsors is Blue Chew, which is actually like Viagra in gum form. So you chew it like gum. And
interesting. Who was the developer for that one?
I don't know, but you don't even need a prescription. You basically, so you go to a website and you do like a virtual
consulting.
Yeah, with an actual doctor, and they just prescribe it. You tell them you're having issues, and they tell you how to fix it. Well, chew the gum.
Chew the gum, but does it have the same reactions as it does Viagra?
Yeah.
Is it strong?
So
I forget what their slogan is. It's hilarious. I can't remember.
Particularly that kind of strong, but I was.
All right. I have a question that's actually on topic. So
was that off topic?
No. But how strong it is was. Okay. So can a higher government overwrite the FDA process?
Can a higher
government official, can they be like, okay, you said no, but we can approve it?
Oh, like overturn it?
Yeah.
No, money talks, bullshit walks. That's just how I say it.
100%.
But the FDA does have the power of authority to authorize any new drug or agricultural, etc. So the power lies within the FDA.
That's it. The buck stops there.
The bus stops there.
Okay.
Got it.
So no one higher up, the president can't be like,
no.
Okay.
It's pretty much the FDA has the power.
He's like, listen, the Blue Chew needs to go through, okay?
Needs to go through. Many people need this. No, the FDA has the power to say yes or say no. That is, and I may get shot in the head for this one.
We got your back.
But again, that is not to say that, certain people may have certain pulls here and there. I'm very open-minded, and I don't put anything past any one particular industry. I don't care if it's politics, education, but for the most part, they have, non-involved people sometimes with these approvals, just to make sure that there's no actual connection. Like, they want to make sure that this is actually being done genuinely and it's being approved genuinely. So yes, it does stop at the FDA for that particular reason.
Got it.
Thank you.
One thing I'm really curious about, this is a little off topic but still on topic, is why there has not been a proper AIDS cure yet. Why you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. It's been since the 80s, right? I'd say the 80s is when really HIV and AIDS peaked. And, there's all these management drugs. And the only thing I can think of is it's more profitable to keep people sick and control the illness rather than cure it. But like you were saying, it could take anywhere from 10 to 15 years to actually get this approved and to market. So maybe it's in development. Maybe it's going to happen.
Maybe it's a mixture of both.
How do you mean?
Maybe it's a mixture of, hello.
She just loves you.
I'm sorry.
Maybe, who knows? And I just like to call things out in the air for what it is. Maybe it's a combination of, there's the right drug to actually cure AIDS. It could be in development, or it could be that they're almost there, but something is lacking, and they still need to go back and figure this out.
Because they got it now so it's undetectable. So basically,
exactly. Like, we do have some, we got it to the point where it can be undetectable, and you can live a very healthy life as long as you're taking this medication.
Yeah.
So there's a line there where we can say, well, you know what? A huge step has been made into this, because for many, many years we knew that was not the case. Mm-hmm. So to actually have people that live with this horrible disease that can, go with it, untraceable. It's actually, that's really an impressive milestone in the pharmaceutical.
It used to be a death warrant. You just signing it.
Like, it's like, you know what? good to go. And and it's nice to see that this is a milestone that has been achieved for at least AIDS, and hopefully within the next, I don't know, another 10, 15 years, 20, who knows, we'll actually have a cure. The same thing can be said for cancer.
Yeah.
God willing.
I need it for diabetes. Like, I need something to just like fix it, because that's like a huge issue.
I mean, diabetes is a huge issue, but it's also a diet issue.
It's diet and exercise.
Diet and exercising is part of what really keeps you healthy. So if you want to stuff your face with candy and all the garbage food in the world, and I'm not saying that garbage food is awful all the time. I like my randomness of garbage food, and I'll be the first one to admit it. I like a good pizza, damn it. Like, I just do. But it's how you take care of yourself. Like, your wealth, like, your health is your wealth.
Is your wealth,
it's absolutely, without a doubt. You must take care of yourself first. If you don't not take care of yourself, you cannot expect for a pill to do it for you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that to me is what it boils down to. Regardless of how many pharmaceutical forms, like, just because I'm handing over a pill to you, if you're not only doing part, if the pill is meant to work, but if you're not doing of your part, then what's the point? And so that is where I'm very mindful of telling people, do not rely on this one medication to cure your every single illness. We want to also be able to stay healthy, and that really starts with you.
Yep.
So, so now we got the drug approved and everything.
Okay, moving on.
Now it's like, manufactured, and it's mass produced, and it's, great and dandy. And that's just here in the U.S., by the way. Mm-hmm. And now we can mass produce it. Now we can sell it. And now someone has it in their cabinet.
Nice.
Yes.
And they're taking it. Yes.
And they're taking it. But it doesn't stop there.
It doesn't?
So you're done with the quote unquote research and development, but there's such a thing as also continuing like pharmacovigilance, monitoring of this medication after it has been, put out for manufacturing, mainly because sometimes you just have to change the labeling of it. Maybe, people are still getting certain reactions, so they need to, gather that data, change it around, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot, even when the drug, has been out in the market, there's still a lot that goes into it.
Yeah.
And it costs millions of dollars to actually get to that point. Now imagine if the FDA said this is not approved.
Oh my gosh!
After you did all the trials,
just lost millions and millions of dollars.
Millions of dollars.
And you just gotta take it. Like,
and
you can't.
And you may have to sit down and say, "Well, crap," or you may be able to appeal it,
or maybe repackage it. I wonder if they could.
They use it for something else. That's actually what happened with Viagra. It was actually supposed to be for something else.
Yeah, I think it was for hair loss.
I don't remember what it was for.
You gained something.
Yeah.
It was for something, and then it didn't work, and they said, "Oh, it had
hair didn't grow, but something did."
Hair didn't grow, but it sure helped little Johnny over there.
Little Johnny's big Johnny now. I love these little jokes.
Help little Johnny.
They're easy. They're almost too easy.
Yeah, it's like, he's happy. He's really happy, and so is his wife. The spark is back. But that's just pretty much, where it all, goes to. And so I just wanted to at least share a very basic, high summary, knowledge of what happens in a pharmaceutical industry. People so many times say, "Oh, they're the devil," or the medications are too expensive, or this or that. But we're only looking at that side of it. We're not looking at the back and the history of why these medications, sometimes are so costly.
Well, I think that's because just like anything else, anything that's lucrative, there's going to be corruption. Yeah. There's going to be people that take advantage of the system. So like we were talking about Martin Shkreli.
Before you go on him, I just have a quick question about like American. I get like the whole history and the process. And once the pill is out, how come in America it's like a certain price, but somewhere else, like in the UK, it can be a different price?
So here in the US, we don't not also regulate the pricing of medications.
And this is what you were saying about you think regulations are necessary.
So I think that at a certain point, I do believe that a certain level of regulation should perhaps be established. And this may sound very Republican on me, but whatever.
That's all right. But
they in the UK, for example, medications are regulated. It's a process, and there's a negotiation about what they think that people should be able to pay for this medication.
Do they have a single payer system in the UK?
I don't recall. I can't recall.
Okay, I think it's similar to our system. Okay. I think the healthcare, it might. I'm not really sure. I know in Canada it's single payer, so it's social healthcare.
It's social. I think. Is it UK or is it a combination of both?
It might be, but I know Bernie Sanders did a bit where he went to Canada to get he's diabetic to get his insulin, and he was saying how he spent a fraction of the cost just by.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Canada might be perhaps also one of those countries. I don't know much about Canada, but it might be that they also regulate the cost of medication.
They must, yeah.
And again, with both angles, there comes an up and a down, right? If the medication is being regulated, then it's a lot cheaper. But in the regulation of it, is every single medication accessible to the people who need it?
Right.
That's one thing.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And that's, for example, in the UK, that's just like a compare and contrast. Here in the US, the prices are not regulated, but you also have access to all of it.
Okay, so...
So if it's there, you can get it, but
you might be able to
afford it.
You might go bankrupt in the process.
But you're alive.
But you're alive. Yeah. Now you're broke, so it's all good. Now you just have the stress. Priorities. Now you just have the stress of paying.
Yeah. Weigh your options. Life above ground, but you're a little broke, or the latter.
Exactly. Yeah. So you gotta just pick and choose your battles. And so that's something to certainly keep in mind when it comes to why the price cost are regulated in other countries. I think that there needs to be a happy medium. Yes, hello again. There needs to be a happy medium when it comes to, at least in my opinion, something that people can afford, but something that will also not let pharmaceutical firms go broke. I mean, pharmaceutical firms are paying thousands and thousands of employees. Like, this is not just the research and development process of it. There are thousands of employees that are literally involved, whether directly or indirectly, in the development of a drug. And if you are saying that you're going to charge $13 a pill, well, sure, that's great. So I'm going to lay off about half my people. And
right.
I'm being, and this is just an exaggeration, don't get me wrong, but I just want you to see the picture of it.
Yeah. Well, I definitely, we live in a capitalist system, right? So I think these companies should be profitable, but I think there's a level of greed that comes into play.
It used to be like an adequate gap, like a cap. Like, can we cap it here?
Like you said, the regulation. I think that definitely helps. It keeps people honest.
Yeah, I think that if there was a regulation that can give you, from XYZ to XYZ, that could be something that could possibly be worked on, and that would be something that, to be completely honest, I would want to see in the future. Because listen, when Martin Shkreli, this whole issue with pharmaceutical firms, skyrocketing the cost of medications, Congress was like, what the hell?
I think part of his argument, so really quick, for our viewers, Martin Shkreli, I think he was originally a hedge funder before he got into pharmaceuticals, right? Okay. And what was the name? Do you guys remember the name of his pharmaceutical company? Daraprim was the name of the drug that he raised the price.
Turing Pharmaceuticals was the name of his company.
Yeah, let me pull this up really quick.
Turing, Turing, sorry, Turing Pharmaceuticals. And Daraprim was pretty much purchased from Impax.
Yeah.
For $55 million.
Yeah, and it's a 62-year-old drug. It's been around for a long time, and it's primarily used to treat newborns and HIV patients.
Yeah, so it's used in conjunction with another medication, with another antibiotic.
Okay, so he raised the price from the drug from $13.50 to $750 a pill.
Yep.
And
that's a huge increase.
It's a huge increase.
It's a huge increase.
And
but But these are meds that are keeping people alive. Like, this is HIV medication. It's not like,
here's
I don't know. Those other meds that aren't keeping people
when
alive.
it gets really interesting, right? Because my human being stuff. When I was talking to you with you a couple of hours ago, or maybe minutes ago, whatever.
A little while ago.
It's all relative.
It's all relative in time. But we were talking about the human side of me was completely disgusted by him. Like, you asshole. Like, I cannot believe you did this. Like, I'm disgusted by this whole thing. Because it's the human being in me. Like, you know what? People need these medications.
But from the business side.
From the business side, I did. That's a really good damn plant, though. And this is the whole point. You really have to set yourself aside. It's hard. And especially if you have relatives or friends that perhaps, are, being affected by this disease.
Yeah.
It's harder for you to even accept it because it sucks. Nobody wants to pay $750 per pill. It's crazy.
And his argument was, it's the insurance companies that are paying. So why not? That's what he was. He's like, you're not paying out of pocket $750. It's your insurance company.
If they're
That's
interesting.
That's a really interesting
if
argument.
the insurance company says it's okay for you to get it.
Exactly.
Yeah, so insurance companies, they regulate a lot of medicine, like a lot.
And you're still paying a portion of it, so...
Yeah. So how much were they willing to cover? Do you guys know?
I don't know. That is something...
Because I know even like when I'm trying to give a certain medication, if the insurance company says no, like... my hands are tied. I have to find another med that might do the similar thing. Might not be the best thing.
So Polly's a nurse. We should...
Yeah, sorry.
Polly's a nurse practitioner.
Yeah.
Nurse practitioner, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so
Which is
I had that
super
problem.
Cool. That's a really cool nurse.
I had that problem not too long ago when the insurance company said no. So I have to either appeal it, but at the same time, when I'm trying to appeal that, the patient's not getting anything.
Yeah.
So I have to try to keep finding things. It might not be the best thing, but I have to find something that the insurance company... And I don't know. I don't think insurance companies should dictate how we practice.
Is that like generic medication?
No,
Is that what?
It was brand.
See, interesting enough, like I've known of people who cannot take generic versions of the original. They have to stick to the original because otherwise their bodies react differently.
And there's not always generic versions.
And there's no
so does that mean that the chemical compounds are different?
It could be that there might be a very small, slight variation on the generic version of a pill or medication that can actually create, a different reaction than when a patient is taking the original version. Now, again, we have to remember that, you have a 20-year patent. So for 20 years, if this medication is relatively new, for 20 years, no one's touching this.
Yeah.
So is my insurance company going to cover this, or I'm going to have to pay out of pocket? And, insurance companies are insurance companies. And that's an entirely different conversation. That's an entirely different monster to discuss. But yeah, so you have this. Now, what this man did, business genius. And
also known as pharma bro.
Yes, they call him
self-proclaimed,
pharma bro.
pharma bro, or pharma bro. Pharma bro is in prison now.
He is, and he did file for an appeal, and unanimously they said, "No, you're gonna serve your 7 years in prison." Wow. And if he did not realize that he was actually apparently trying to run his business, quote unquote,
from prison,
within prison, without use of his cell phone. I don't know how long this went on, but are you actually telling me that no one noticed that he had a cell phone in prison? Come on,
he used cell phone?
No, inmates do get cell phones in prison, and they get access to the internet. They have to use a certain browser with, like, obviously, if you're in prison, if you're a man in prison, you might be looking up certain material
that you should not be looking at.
Yeah. But anyway, they do get internet access, and some of them are granted the use of cell phones.
But I think when it comes to a federal prison,
I
think it's entirely different. And this is what I believe I've read where they said, no, man, you cannot. But for whatever period of time that he was either firing on someone that worked at his company, no one noticed he had a cell phone. No one noticed this.
I think people looked the other way. You have enough money, people look the other way.
What happened. I think that he either, someone bribed someone. They were like, yeah, you should.
Another business deal.
Another business deal. But so he purchased, Daraprim. Daraprim, from Impact's laboratories for $55 million And the tricky part and the interesting part about this is that while the medication has been out of patent for I don't know how many years, no one has still developed a generic version of it. So he hit the jackpot. Let's just call it for what it is. It was a business jackpot.
It's like the monopoly on it.
It was. Because when the deal came through, one of the agreements was that they wanted Impacts to pull the drug from the market, which they did. They pulled the medication from the market. Now, Turing has the medication. They're releasing it like 2 months later under controlled release or controlled marketing. Like, so they have massive power over who actually gets this medication, which makes it even more difficult for any generic pharmaceutical firm to obtain a pill, or if it's in liquid form, so that they can actually study it and create their own generic version of it. It was business genius. Now, with that being said, if I'm spending $55 million on a pill,
you make your money back.
I need to make my money back.
So, and you're not going to do that at $13.50 a pill.
I'm not going to do that at $13.50 a pill. So you bet your ass that I'm going to, within the law, because it's not illegal, just make that clear, I'm going to increase that price because I need to make my profit back.
Yeah,
quick.
but $7.50?
That's great.
I mean,
was he doing it to prove a point? Taylor?
Yeah, I think partially.
Yeah.
You know, he likes to be in the limelight.
Yeah.
You know, he also purchased the Wu-Tang album. So the Wu-Tang Clan, I don't know if you guys are like hip-hop fans, but I know, Polly, you're not really. So Wu-Tang...
I'm not actually.
So they spent like a year in the lab chefing up a new album. Wu-Tang hasn't put out an album in a long time. And if you're a hip-hop fan, like, they're the OGs. Like, they started... the whole East Coast rap thing, they're definitely like...
Yeah.
They're the OGs. Anyway, so this guy, Martin Shkreli, you know, say whatever you want about him, buys the album and then decides not to release it.
But there's a trick to that one.
What's that?
Oh.
See, the trick to it was, he said, and this is when he really screwed up. He probably pissed off a lot more people. So the trick to this one is that he said that if Trump won, he would release the album.
Ooh.
So where is it?
Here, because he won.
But if Hillary won, he said that he would burn it. That's apparently the rumor mill. Yes. So
he just wants attention.
When Trump won, instead of releasing the tracks for people to download or whatever the case, whatever promise he made, he only released like one sample track.
Yeah, I remember.
It's evil. It's pure evil.
And I think he played it while live streaming. It wasn't like an MP3 he put out.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe he did, but I do remember seeing something on YouTube, and it was basically him like in his house live streaming and playing the song in the background. He's like, if you want to hear it, you got to hear it this way. So you have to look at his ugly face.
He's literally the human equivalent of a troll face.
He is. He has what we call a hit me face.
Yeah.
When you look at him, you just want to punch him in the mouth.
You know what? I'm not one to shy away from really speaking my mind. But, you know, there are certain people that you meet out there, and you're like, yeah, if I could punch in the face, I would.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
He's just the epitome of the white privilege thing too. When I look at him, it's just written all over him.
Which is really interesting because if I'm not mistaken, when I was reading on him, if I'm not mistaken, I can be corrected if anyone is online and they have
that he grew up humble, poor, and all that stuff.
I think that when his parents migrated from, and he's like, you know, half Albanian, half Croatian.
Yeah.
His parents or his father, someone was only a janitor.
Yeah, that's true. He grew up in Brooklyn.
So
they were poor.
They were poor. So, you know, you lived the American dream and you actually pushed yourself to, you know, do something quite great. But in the process, you also got greedy. And this is really what caught up with him. It wasn't the fact, and let's make that clear, it wasn't the fact that he increased the drug price to $750 per pill. That's not what got him in prison. What got him in prison was the fraud.
Yeah, securities fraud.
You know, and the SEC does not play.
Yeah,
that's like one. If you are a publicly held, you know, company, whatever the case it might be,
you're under the magnifying glass.
You're under the magnifying glass, and that's a group of people or organization that you do not want to piss off ever. Just like the FDA, don't piss them off. There's other people that are going to approve your drug. Don't piss them off.
Or you'll end up like pharma, bro.
Shackled
up.
Like, can I get up? No. No, you cannot. Go back to Johnny. Go back in.
He's in his cell right now listening to that Wu-Tang album now.
No, he's not. It actually got, I believe that actually may have been also sold at auction.
Oh, really?
So when the states, and I believe the feds, I think. Again, I say I think because I didn't read the whole information, but I believe that they actually confiscated pretty much everything he ever possessed.
Wow.
That
sucks.
being one of them. And that one item being one. So I'm not sure if they gave it an estimated value. And so now they either have it or they sold it in auction to make whatever money he owed them. So
that's crazy.
So we don't know who has that album now. If someone else has it.
They're doing the same thing.
If I remember correctly, I think he bought it for $1 million. I think he spent $1 million on it. And that was them just like the group was like, well, we can put it out there and see what happens, or we can just take the quick $1 million. Yeah. And they took it. I think they would have done way better.
I mean, they certainly, I'm not into hip hop, but I know who Wu-Tang Clan is, and I'm fairly confident that if they had released an album, they would have made more than that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, maybe one of them should buy it back, find out who has it, and put it out there.
Like I need to. I'm interested to read on what really happened with things that were taken, and where are they? I mean, he had a couple of interesting artifacts, manuscripts from a different historical individuals. So he had a really eccentric collection of a couple of things that I go, you know what, that's good actually. He's not a dumb person, and by all means, and I will not say that
you don't
he's
get to where
you don't get to where he was.
Yeah.
By being stupid.
Absolutely.
He did something right. Unfortunately, it just he screwed up in the process.
Yeah.
He just did.
Yeah.
And now he's little Johnny in prison.
Yeah.
Wearing a pink. What's it called? Is it
Orange.
Is it orange? Yeah. Stripes. I don't know.
In some countries, so like
it used to be stripes.
Yeah. So in some countries, like in Brazil, depending on the crime that you commit, that you wear different fatigues. I don't know what they're called.
I think that's great labeling. I mean, if you're a child molester and you're wearing pink, you're gonna be my best friend, Bubba.
Yeah. So do you know about that though? Because they actually make them wear pink.
No, really?
Straight up.
I was just making a joke, but I think that's great because, and I'm very honest, if you are sick enough in the head that you need to molest a child or rape a woman, Bubba should have a lot of fun with you.
Absolutely. Castrate him.
You should be Bubba. You should be Bubba. For eternity. Like, Bubba should see you know what to do because Bubba's right there.
There was I'm pretty sure it was Brazil. It was either Brazil or Portugal. But there was a guy who was a professional mixed martial art fighter. Like basically like the guy's a weapon. You know what I mean? And he molested his son. His young son. I forget how old he was. This is only fragments of the story, but they put him in prison, put him in the pink uniform, and the inmates took care of him real quick.
They blew off a lot of steam.
Yeah, they did.
In many ways.
And there's no way, they make their own justice there. They really
absolutely.
Yeah.
They let him have it.
That's
get
punishment.
he eurned it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Someone like that.
And that to me is why I hear all these stories about, rape and little girls, little boys being molested, or, human trafficking, which is something that I'm quite, learning more about. And not that I've been unaware of it, but more that I'm reading further and further into human trafficking and why. And especially, who was the guy that got
Epstein?
Yes.
Yeah.
He hung himself.
No, somebody whacked him out.
Someone whacked him. Let's just call it for what it is. The media is saying and the reports are saying, listen, he hung himself. The fuck he did not. He did not hang himself. Someone killed him. Yep. And someone from the outside paid someone from the inside to get rid of this man, because if they did not.
Yeah, I think they found that like his neck was broken, but it was broken in a way to where it wouldn't have happened from the way he was hung. So it's kind of, but no one gives a shit. Like no one's saying anything about it. He's a shitty human being.
He was a shitty human being, but the part about it that actually bothered me was that I wanted to know who were the other shitty human beings along with him. And I think that because
Trump. Sorry.
He
he was on that airplane.
I mean,
yeah.
Hey. I mean,
oh no, we're getting into politics.
I know. We were like not gonna do that.
What a strange swim to that side of the pool.
you know, but it's it's
But I think he called his basically like it was a prostitution ring sort of on his private jet. He was a multimillionaire. It might even have been a billionaire. I don't know.
I think he was a billionaire. And, and I remembered when he was first in prison and he made the first attempt, the first one, to to hang himself because it was too hard for him. Really? Let me ask you something, asshole. How do you think these women felt when you? God knows how these girls, like how
14,
we don't
15
know
years
what
old.
fake promises these girls were being made, and you put them into this sort of environment where they're forcing their bodies onto, or men are forcing themselves onto them because this is what their job is. So spare me excuse my language, spare me the bullshit about
100%.
Me feeling pity for you. The core of it, I wanted to know exactly how many people were involved, and that's unfortunately what we don't get to know right now.
Right.
That it can come out later in the future, sure, but right now we don't have that information, and that's what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Who else was getting their hands dirty into this?
Because other people were. A
lot of corporate people.
High level people.
High level people were definitely involved in this. And so, we're in politics, 'cause politics makes the world go round. And so we're here today dealing with, certain people in office that I don't want to mention, but Trump.
One thing we try not to Polly and I try and stay bipartisan on the show, but I mean we're human beings. We have opinions.
We live in society.
We live in society, and right now things are so weird. The country is turned upside down. Something that we talk about a lot is it seems like people are self-segregating because of really strong opinions, political opinions. And, I'm worried that maybe the government, the politicians, the people in power, the system, the man, whatever you want to call it, like maybe that's their intention. Because if they keep us divided, then we don't have the power in numbers.
And I'll give you an example of that, which it went in the media. I think that it didn't get the coverage it deserved. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I'm half Puerto Rican, half Turkish, so it's a bit of a mix. No one really talks about the fact that Puerto Rico, or Puerto Ricans in Puerto Rico, went on a strike for 13 days in a row, and they kicked out their governor.
Really?
No one mentioned this.
I didn't know that.
Exactly. No one is talking about this. And I kept saying, why is the media not really covering this the way it deserves? A country, a small country, a U.S. property.
Yes.
Of 3.5 million people said enough is enough. We're done with this crap. We're done with our governor because he was not the best one to begin with. And he was not the best choice. And he could be on corruption. And there were strikes. You could literally see pictures of people blocking, parts of those main streets, like in front of what we call back home La Fortaleza. People were standing there. I think it was 13 days in a row. 13 days of people coming back and forth protesting peacefully. And of course, there are always going to be the rowdy people here and there. It always happens. Let's just, let's be realistic. But for 13 days straight or 15 days straight, if not even more at this point, the country came together, unified, and said, we're done. We're done with your crap. We want you out.
What did he do?
What did he do? Well, I think I can't even...
Is that a whole other issue?
That's like another podcast about the entire subject. It went on. People
That's me.
Is that you, Polly?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, Polly didn't silence her phone. And the people that are watching on Twitch right now are getting like an explosive sound. Sorry, guys.
Hold on.
So I
Saved by the bell.
Sorry.
No, he like some of the
It's all good. It happens.
It was one of those things that one of the the Secretary of Education, I believe had gotten arrested in D.C.
Wait, I'm sorry. Say this again.
So the Secretary of Education had gotten arrested in D.C.
Okay.
I think that Mr. Rosselló,
that was the governor?
That was the governor of Puerto Rico. He was either on vacation. I can't remember the full story. I should, but I don't. And a lot of things were just really piling up. I don't know if you know about much about Puerto Rico, but the electric infrastructure is not the best one. So you have Hurricane Maria, which completely devastated the island. And everybody's making, he's making promises, and like you're making promises that you are not going to be able to keep, and everybody's aware of this.
Right.
And people are like, no, he's gonna do it. No, he's not.
Was this to get reelected or just to get it as
not to get reelected, but it was like, for example, power. Like Puerto Rico was without power. 90% of the island was without power, if not 95% of the island was without power, and it took a very, very long time to get back to where they needed to be.
Yeah.
And everything that was going on was not really going on in the favor of the people. People were losing jobs. People, I remember a Walmart, I believe in the town of Arecibo. Literally one day people go in and Walmart is closed.
Wow.
With a sign at the door. This location is permanently closed. People are losing jobs. There are no jobs in the island. Puerto Rico is pretty much bankrupt. It's grand bankrupt. It doesn't have money to sustain, even though the U.S. is funding it. It doesn't have. The government is too corrupt. And the funds are not really getting to where it needs to get to.
So you're saying that the money that the U.S. is supplying to Puerto Rico, it's not being handled correctly.
It's not being handled correctly, and it definitely. And I think that and this is not. Let's just be clear. I think it exploded with Rosselló because people were just tired, and he did enough to just make people go, "That's it, we're done." But this has been going on since I want to say perhaps the 80s, if not earlier. So it's been an accumulation of people not stopping, not daring to speak up, not daring until the very end when people are just exhausted. And he said that he was not going to quit. And they said, you want to bet? You want to bet? He quit. He had released a statement, I believe, on a Wednesday. And they said, I'm not quitting. I'm just doing some soul searching. They said, and he said, and I forgot who was it that said, you can do some soul searching or we can impeach you. You pick.
Yeah. And
if they impeached him, they knew, he knew he was not going to win this, and it was going to be far, far worse. Yeah. And not only that, but I'm Puerto Rican. I'm fairly confident that he probably received a lot of death threats. Yeah. So that you compound it with that.
That'll do it.
You want to leave quick.
Yeah.
And so he quit. And then he had selected his successor, and they said, we don't want her either.
Oh, really?
Wow. So he's like, I'll step down if you have her.
Was it like an ultimatum? It was pretty much like...
That's also like a revolution.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I love it.
It's really strong to do that.
Yeah, that's power of the people.
That's power of the people. And me and one of my closest friends, love her dearly. We were talking about this. And one of the things that she mentioned, and it's true, people are here in this country are too divided into they don't have the power. This was over the summer. They don't have the guts.
Yes.
To really
especially
march
millennials.
Up. Yeah.
Don't start with millennials.
Oh man, my problem with millennials is that people in our generation are not forming their own opinion. They get a soundbite or something that they hear in mainstream media, and then they run with it.
And this is what I call political diarrhea.
Oh, that's what that meant. Okay.
That's political diarrhea right there. Every opinion,
Not a side effect of one of these pharmaceutical drugs. Different.
This is something different.
Yeah, side effect of society.
It's a side effect of society. Like people are passionate in blindly following their political parties and not looking at the facts. Those who are educated, those who are really involved. But let's just be honest. When you go on social media, how many people do you actually see really trying to break down the numbers or really trying to explain things from a bipartisan point of view? Because too much on the right side is not a good thing, and too much on the left side is not a good thing. Let's just be realistic about it. It just isn't. And so you have individuals who are just like, no, you're wrong. But are you talking from your emotions or are you talking from logic? And a lot of these times you can actually read these comments and no, they're not logical. They're emotional.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong.
A lot of name calling.
Yeah.
It's a lot of name calling.
A lot of name
Personal
calling,
attacks.
a lot of bullying, a lot of attacks. And like you guys mentioned earlier, like people forget that we have differences of opinion.
And that's okay.
And it's completely okay to have differences of opinion, i.e. Ellen DeGeneres. In the whole snafu with George W. Bush.
we talked about that. Yes, we did.
Yeah, it's like,
so what?
She
said, yeah.
Give it a break. So the people are like, well, she's only thinking about, the people, like, she's only part of the 1%. So when she's hanging out with them, she's not really thinking about the rest of us. I'm like, come on, like, you can't win. You cannot win. And this is the whole point where, like, please, like, just... She said it and she didn't back down for her comment, and nor should she do so.
Yeah,
like
I agree.
That's who she is. Then whether she's not some people were saying, well, she's not really a nice person, she's rude to her staff or whatever. Like, okay, it can go.
Wait, they're picking that up now from this picture?
They're saying that she's been notoriously known for being rude to people and her staff and whatnot. And I said, okay, I can see this going two ways. Okay, people can be assholes. Let's just be honest.
I just hope she doesn't get bit by the cancel culture bug.
Yeah, I'm like, hope
because
this is not the
this.
reason.
Yeah,
That's sad. She really like stands on the line really carefully. She's like, she doesn't offend anybody. Like, she's very careful.
Yeah, she's PC.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she try, and I think that she looks. You look at her, and I like her persona, and like she said, we may have differences of opinion, but it doesn't make me not like her. As a TV host and as someone that I think she sounds fairly cool to just talk to as a person.
Yeah.
And the fact that people just ran with this and went in complete opposite directions, I'm like, just give it a rest. Like, sometimes it's just exhausting listening to social media because people are just, and I'll say this all the time. If you're that busy with social media and posting too many political or emotional stuff on social media, you need a new hobby.
Yeah, you got a little too much free time on your hands.
You have either a little bit too much time on your hands. And listen, I have an apartment that I need help cleaning a lot. Because I'm constantly moving things around.
Come on over. You can talk all the shit you want. Just clean.
Take, you know what? To getting rid of clothes, take it with you. Just take it. You want to go for a jog? Let's go for a jog. Find something
productive to do.
What was it that Trevor Noah said a while ago when Game of Thrones ended back in May?
Yeah.
And he said that if you're that concerned about the end of Game of Thrones, you need an STD and a credit card and it can't be further from the truth, because it's like you need a new hobby. You need to do something with your life, because this is too much. I'm talking about political affiliations or LGBT. It's an endless conversation, and I think that people should just learn to be respectful of one another.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had Christy Grakowski on our show 2 episodes ago, who is a transsexual conservative Trump supporter, and
that's an interesting combo.
Yes,
it's a very interesting combo.
Very interesting. And while we may not agree with a lot of the things that she said, we at least gave her a platform to speak her mind and educate people from her perspective and her point of view. And I think that's important.
Exactly.
I said this on that episode, and I'll say it again. This is the words of my grandmother, that to understand your own position, you have to appreciate and understand the opposition.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is something that does not happen nowadays. I think that people are blindly, again, I want to say that people are blindly following their political parties. And I think that a lot of it has to do with frustrations on either side.
Yeah.
And because of that, they look at, a Republican looks like a Democrat like you're crazy. And a Democrat looks at a Republican and goes, you're crazy. And you're greedy and you're evil. And then you're too liberal and you want everything for free.
Yeah,
and
that's exactly the arguments.
And so there's really no... Can we just have an understanding? And there's actually a website. I don't know if it's developed or done or is complete. I can't remember the name of it. There is a website that is unbiased. And it's pretty much the opinions of both Republican and Democratic politicians.
Okay.
And people can come into this website and they can just listen. There's no agenda. There's absolutely no agenda. The website was developed. I don't know who made it. The website was developed so that people can go, sit down, educate themselves about the views from both political angles without an agenda.
Yeah.
This is just people sitting down and
listening.
No media.
There's no media.
That's a big one.
And that's a really good website. And I cannot remember the name, and I cannot remember who was responsible for this website. And I want to kick myself in the butt.
I hope it's really out there. Like, I hope they have that for people to do, because it's really hard now to get unbiased information.
And that's exactly what caught my attention. And the fact that I cannot remember the name of the website is driving me crazy.
Well, when you do remember it, we'll put a link in the description or comment on the video with it, and then people can check it out. Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like, yes, this is what we need. We need a website that, people can just go into and fully educate themselves about the things that matter to them, but listening to the politicians, senators, people in Congress, whatever, you're listening to these people and you go, this is what this person believes and this is what that person believes in. And you can, make an assertive, educated decision. Yeah. And that's important. Absolutely. Because what you get from the media is these sound bites. They're just like, they pluck out whatever narrative they're trying to steer. That's what they find. So if Trump does a speech, a 2-hour speech, they might take a 1-minute segment from that. And then, millennials will form, well, not all, but most will form their entire opinion just based around this 1-minute tiff that's like, just a small semblance of what the entire message was, and then you end up with people saying, and I'm just hypothetical, or people saying, Trump is a racist or Trump is a sexist. And then they're like, well, what did he say? What did he specifically say that brings you to that conclusion? And they don't know. They're just reiterating something that they heard. And I'm not saying that he's not. He may very well be, but what facts are you utilizing to back it up? Exactly. Now, granted, let's just face facts. There's plenty out there we can actually find for. We had a hard time for the LGBT. Yes, community. We did. So there was people saying, that Trump was anti-gay. He was against LGBT people in the military, and we actually tried very hard to find stuff that accompanied that, and we couldn't. It was the contrary. He was actually in support of it. So I don't know. That was interesting, and maybe it's out there, but we couldn't find it. And I remember someone saying Trump is racist. Is it really racist, or is he a strategist? That's interesting. Maybe both. I don't know. I mean, I remember one of the key points behind the racism thing was that when he was developing real estate in New York, he was selective on who he would rent to. He wouldn't rent to minorities, people of color, things like that. And that, and that. Yeah, and there were actual stories, cases of people interviewed. Who were discriminated against, and I remembered. Yes. I think I remember hearing that. Now, was he selective because they didn't have the means? Yeah, there's no proof of that. Yeah. And they could just say, and that will be my question. Yeah. Like, not because I want to doubt, but because I want to know the full facts. Like, what was it that he was selective about? Was he selective of who was going in, and the people who were trying to get in looked a certain way but didn't have the income? Yeah, it could have been that. Because I don't, to be completely honest, I'm looking at it from both angles. If you look to me
like you may not pay the rent. And your paperwork proves to me that you don't look like you can pay your rent. I'm not renting from you.
Right.
I'm not renting to you, not from, because if you're a landlord, you want your money.
You want to make sure you get paid. Yeah.
You want to make sure you get paid. But most importantly, you know how hard it is to kick out a tenant when they're in arrears?
It's really hard.
Yeah. Especially in New York.
They have so many rights. So many rights.
New York City, I don't know if it's all of New York State, but it is one of the most difficult. It's very like in favor of the tenant.
Yeah. And so imagine that I let you in because I want to give you the benefit of the doubt.
And now you screwed yourself over.
Yeah.
And now I go ahead and I let you in. And I cannot get you out.
Yeah.
And you're destroying my apartment.
Yeah, that's the worst. They're very vindictive.
Yeah, I get it. Absolutely. But, and this was just something that this is how the media framed it.
And it's like, don't just listen to what the media, news, or they're going to feed what makes the most ratings. Let's just face the facts.
Yeah.
Just sit down and truly educate yourself in a way that absolutely you have no doubt that you're right. Yeah. That you've done your research and you can absolutely, without a reason of a doubt, say, you know what, I did my research, he's a natural racist. And I don't want anything to do with him. And if that's the case, you know what, then he is, and hey, it is what it is.
And you have the right to that opinion.
And you have the absolute right to that opinion. But don't just go by what the media is feeding you, because the media has its own agenda.
Yeah.
They want ratings, and that's just what it boils down to.
Yeah, I mean, if you switch, so take CNN, for example, typically a liberal news resource, and then you have Fox News, typically conservative, right? Well, that's what they are, conservative, liberal. Okay. If you switch between these two channels, they're completely polarized positions. So, I mean, it doesn't take a brainiac to know that it's all kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if they're that extreme between their stories,
then you need to find who are the guys. And it's a very expensive, newspaper, but the Wall Street Journal, because it's so costly, people are really kind of like forced to really write really good articles.
Yeah.
That's a good newspaper to go to. I think membership is expensive, that I recall. But it's a good paper to grab, or try to grab, at least some articles. You can actually, get snippets online, etc.
Yeah.
And, it gives you, there's actually a podcast. So if you at least want a summary of the Wall Street Journal, there's actually a podcast. And they give you like a 3-minute summary, and I believe something also a little longer afterwards that you can also listen to. And it's pretty much a narrative of what news they're actually releasing. And that is also something to look at and look into.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm very suspicious of just going into websites that look too Republican or look too, liberal.
Too one-sided.
Too one-sided is not what you want to do. There's another website that I actually found when I was doing a little bit of digging, and I wanted to share that with you guys. And it's called GovTrack. GovTrack.us, and it pretty much tracks everything, every legislation or law that is being passed by Congress.
Oh wow!
You can go in there and you can actually look down what has been signed, as of let's say for example October 1st. There you go. You can actually look at it, and that's so amazing. For example, one of the things that I believe GovTrack was stating is that Trump wasn't wrong in saying that he has signed the most, I think, laws when he got into office. I believe like the first 100 days. I believe he wasn't wrong in saying that. But when you look at the overall picture of his approval rating when it comes to new laws, he's actually falling behind in comparison to others.
Oh, really? Okay, that I didn't know. I thought his approval rating was like over 50% right now.
So I will definitely check GovTrack.
I got it up right here. Yeah, I just thought we're talking about it. We could show. And I don't know how well it's coming up on the screen. It's probably a little washed out from the lighting.
Just a tiny bit, but I think people can see.
So let's see. How does this work?
So this is what I had found today. So you go to Tracking United States Congress.
Yeah, it's showing up.
It's completely unbiased. So it's not funded by the government.
Okay.
And you can see here, like, a bill to designate the facility of the United States, as postal service located. So they're like very, either small laws that really don't impact anybody to larger ones. But you can see everything that, is really going on. And hold on one second. I am home, find members of Congress. So you can go to probably all bills.
Oh, wow.
There are 65 enacted bills and joint resolutions in sessions of Congress.
Oh, you can see what party they represent here.
Exactly.
Oh,
it's
wow.
a highly, and especially now that we have the elections going on, it's a highly,
it's a good resource to have.
A good resource to have. You can really go into and figure out what is really going on and who is doing what.
Yeah, this is definitely something to check out.
And this is not like backed by any certain party.
It's not.
It's just
bipartisan.
It's completely bipartisan.
This is nice. So you can just educate yourself on
Absolutely.
what people are trying to pass and what's not being
Yeah,
passed.
so the website again is govtrack.us. So if our podcast listeners that are just listening on audio, you can check that out.
And I just happened to briefly, go through it, and I thought that was very helpful and something to share
awesome.
with people who are, interested in learning more about what's going on politically, what laws are being passed, and just if you just want to do a good browsing for it. And if I want to jump back really quick into pharma, something that I really wanted to go over is for those people who are, having a hard time, or if you just want a little discount on your medications, there's also a website that I briefly have mentioned to you guys yesterday called goodrx.com. And it's a discount coupons for prescription drugs. You can literally look up this website, look up the medication, and it'll give you a list of locations and what are the coupons offered. Maybe Walgreens has
that's great.
$15 discount over your overall cost.
So for people paying out of pocket.
So for people paying out of pocket, if you don't have to pay $15, that's pretty
even a copay,
decent.
like that would help with that.
Exactly. So it's a good website to look at.
What is it again? GoodRx?
GoodRx.
It's good. If you just look up online, GoodRx, it does have an app that, if I'm not mistaken, is also available. Download the app, and if you're out, I have to get this medication, just look up the prescription drug. It should give you a list. Obviously, if you're trying to get from, a location such as, what is it called? Sam's? Mm-hmm. Or what's the other location, like BJ's or whatever. If it's a membership location, right. Then that's only available to members. And I don't think that it actually displays the actual discount. But if you're looking at a Walgreens or Rite Aid, CVS, if you're looking at Giant, for example, that has its in-house pharmacy.
Giant.
Okay. That's another discussion.
One quick rant on Giant.
I am sorry. I
you hit a sore
No. You're fine until you said Giant.
Damn, I thought I was cool.
I can't figure out why their prices are what they are.
Maybe you can have coupons now.
Yeah. Okay. But you have like Whole Foods and these kind of trendy markets and fresh grocer. How do you say it?
Yeah, fresh grocer.
Grocer.
Is fresh grocer good?
Yeah.
No.
It's all right.
It's all the same shit. They just package it differently.
I shop at Whole Foods.
Oh.
Whole Foods.
So fancy.
Yeah, but Giant, when you walk in Giant, it looks like an Acme or a ShopRite, but their prices are comparable to Whole Foods or whoever else. I like to shop at like the more independent little markets. I go to like the Russian market, the Asian market. Their prices are awesome.
The Russian market, I love.
Oh my God.
Because they have Kinder Bueno, which is my favorite. Like whenever I want to treat myself to a good snack, Kinder Bueno is like the best thing
What
ever.
is that?
So it's
like Kinder Bueno.
Kinder Bueno is delicious. So it's pretty much like this long little thing, and it's like covered in like chocolate. And I want to say it might be actually a version of Nutella, but just like on a light cover.
Okay. Yeah.
And the inside is hazelnut cream.
Oh, nice. nice.
Yeah, I need that.
And it's kind of like Nutella.
And they have a white chocolate version, and I think in a dark chocolate version, it's just heaven. Like
This is at the Russian market?
You can get them mainly at the Russian markets. The Asian markets, if they have it, they should. And I'm just saying, if you've never tried it before, it's called Kinder Bueno. I'm a fan.
Which Russian market do you go to? The one in the Northeast?
There's one in the Northeast, and
Bell's?
Seldom that I've been there, but is
it Bell's Market?
I think so.
It's right off of Castor Avenue.
It's on Bustleton, isn't it?
It's like where Bustleton meets Castor. They kind of intersect, and then it turns into Bustleton. Yeah, I love that market. So shout out to Bell's Market in Northeast Philadelphia.
Yeah, I have not been there in years, but that's a great spot.
Yeah,
they have the things that I like, and so.
Yeah, and like all their produce. For example, a lot of these independent, smaller markets. It's funny we went off on this total tangent. But
like, let's go.
You mentioned Giant. It's a sore spot.
Oh, forget about Giant. Giant has a robot in it.
Yeah,
There's
a cool, though. That's really cool.
With cartoon eyeballs.
It does, and it actually scared the crap out of me one time.
Me too.
I did not know that was the thing. My mother knew. She laughed. I didn't laugh. It was great, though. Don't get me wrong. But I'm walking around. It's in the produce area.
Yeah.
And it follows you.
And
I'm
like,
the hell is he doing?
Feel something
and why is he a
behind
he?
you. And I look back, and I'm like, what the hell?
And it's tall, too.
Yeah, it's big.
You know what? I had to admit, if it's not Whole Foods that I buy from, is actually Giant. And I will be biased, and I will actually say that the main reason why I wouldn't mind, shopping from Giant, though I will admit I'm one of those people that likes having their groceries delivered.
Oh, they deliver.
Yes.
Oh, that I didn't know. That's kind of cool.
So Giant
Fresh Grocery delivers too.
Yeah.
A lot of places deliver.
Do they charge? Is there a fee for delivery or?
Yeah, depending on the Peapod, which is owned by Giant, and that's their distributor when you're ordering online.
Okay.
Peapod does charge a fee, but the fee goes down depending on the time frame that you're actually requesting your groceries to be delivered.
Okay, I got you.
And then you pay you pay your driver a tip, or you, with Whole Foods,
yeah.
You get Amazon.
Owned by Amazon.
Owned by Amazon.
Shout out Jeff Bezos. Yeah. Another genius.
He's a business genius. Hate on him, whatever you want, but I'll be very honest with you.
Yeah.
That man, he knew what he was doing.
Yes. You know what's crazy about Jeff? We're tangenting all over the place.
That's okay, let's go.
So, one cool thing about Jeff Bezos, if you look at him from the birth of Amazon, back when it was in that little tiny cubicle or whatever that was, he was this frail, kind of meek little guy.
Yeah.
And now he's like jacked, shaved head. I think he's had some stem cell work done or something.
Yeah. And he's like, yeah, so what? My wife got half my billions, so I still have the other half.
Yeah.
And you know what? I have a hot chick too, so whatever.
I think he's gay, isn't he gay?
No. So I believe that what happened is that he was, rumor has it, I don't care about his personal life, but apparently he was secretly, but not secretly, seeing like a news reporter.
Female.
Yes.
Okay, I don't know where I heard that.
And so I guess at a certain point with every marriage, you just go like, listen, I don't talk to you, you don't talk to me, just call it for what it is.
Yeah.
And I wonder if the reason why they probably also stayed, so long together wasn't so much because they were trying to make it work, but rather because they know that economically it would just destroy him.
Yeah.
I
what
mean,
did she get?
She got half
everything. She's like the richest woman now because of that.
Yeah.
She got half.
That's kind of a cool claim to fame for him. Like, I divorced my wife and made her, the richest woman on earth.
Exactly. Like, I'll take credit for that too. Thank you.
Yeah, but I mean, she was part of the development of the business. She earned that money.
She gave him 3 beautiful, children, if I'm not mistaken. She was there while this whole thing was happening. So you know what? She does take the credit for it.
Absolutely.
I mean, people were saying, "Oh my God," but does she need to take, all of it? No.
Yeah, she does. Let her have all of it.
No. We're talking about like $30 billion. I think what did she walk away with?
She deserves half of whatever he has, because that's what a marriage is.
Let me
no,
see
it's not.
what half was.
No, she deserves everything.
No, it's not. When Janet Jackson got divorced, I don't know how many years ago, and Renee Elizondo, which was her ex-husband at the time.
Okay, well, that might be a little different because it's art.
No, it's money. It's money. I'm sorry, it's money.
But like art is a little like that's
$38
more personal.
billion.
This is a business. Like she helped him build that business.
That's what she got.
Sure.
$38 billion.
That's an awesome amount of money.
Oh my
She
God.
I'm happy for her.
Her kids
Wow.
and everybody else in her family are set for life.
Wow. $38 billion.
Yeah.
What's the first thing you do with $38 billion?
Tell my ex-husband to go fuck himself.
That'll cost you about $8. You still got $37 billion in change.
And I'll do it with what's it called? Like those, like, you know, you have
Telegrams?
telegrams.
Oh yeah. Do like a flash mob.
It's like, there you go. And you're like, I don't know what that, like, sign up. Spells out.
Oh my God. But I think the two of them, they're still friends, right? Like they're still civil
so.
at least.
I mean, they have children together. It's not that they're going to disappear from each other's life. I think they're
Right.
still civil to one another. And listen, marriage is marriage. And no, I don't believe that half is half. I believe that it's my money and that I'll be supportive of you and I will help you. But if you try to go for me, I'd much rather have you someone murder you. I don't care.
Well, at least you didn't go that route with the ex-husband.
Right?
You know, I'm just like,
a whole lot
Just
more.
have him out of here.
Listen, I forgot what we were talking about, and I remember laughing and saying, and that's what I said about, you know, the whole Janet Jackson many years ago.
Yeah.
I believe her ex-husband was trying to get like maybe like half
Yeah.
of she's worth at that time. She was worth like $175 million out
Wow.
of my tours. And granted that he was, you know, part director, but I'm paying you for this.
Yeah.
You want my money? And she was like, nope. And I think she fought him. I think she fought him hard for it. And she was like, I'm not giving you half. Get out of here. and for me, with reason, like, you know, there's this level of greed, and like for, like, you know, Jeff Bezos' ex-wife, I do believe that she deserved half of it, and rightfully so.
Yeah. $38 billion.
38 billion of it. But at the same time, like with Janet Jackson issue, I don't know how long were they married. I think they were married for like 8 years. You don't get to claim half of my money in 8 years.
Right.
No, absolutely no.
Yeah,
way.
she's had a whole entire career
Like, she's had
making
an
that money.
entire career before that. You're not claiming apparently half my money. Like, there's no way. So I think she ended up paying him something, but it was certainly nowhere near what he wanted, and rightfully so. Like,
Yeah, I
I'm
agree
the
with you
one
there.
that's, you know, doing the workouts, doing the tours, writing the music, getting in the studio.
Yeah.
You might be there supporting me,
The
but you're
talent-
not really
the talented
there.
one,
Like,
yeah.
she's a talented one, and I was like, no way.
Yeah,
But
I'm
you're-
with you on that one.
And no.
It's crazy how this conversation went from
Killing her husband.
well, first coupons on
Yeah.
on pharmaceutical drugs
That's where
at
we
places
were.
like Giant to whacking out your ex-husband, $38 billion, and Janet Jackson.
Yeah.
That you only get that with a podcast.
You do, because, you know, it's like the whole, you know,
Yeah.
freedom, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, also just with podcasts, one of the things that interested me the most about doing a podcast is long format discussion and what comes out of it.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, are you familiar with Joe Rogan's podcast?
No.
Okay, so he's probably, I talk about Rogan a lot, but
A
he's
lot.
yeah, he's sort of
Man
like the
crush.
pinnacle of long format discussion. He's like the Larry King of podcasting.
Is Larry King still alive?
I'm not sure if he is. He's held up by hydraulics at this point.
If there's someone online, do you know if Larry King is still alive?
He's powered by like a 12-volt battery. Just, he's a robot.
He's working a Giant.
He's actually behind that robot at Giant. Very strange thought, but maybe. So anyway, Rogan had Bernie Sanders on, and you know, the cool, however you feel about Bernie Sanders, that's cool. But the interesting thing is when you have an hour-long discussion with a politician, you're going to really get more out of that conversation than you will if you're sitting down with like Jake Tapper or whatever from CNN.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
you'll eventually get to the point where you've cut through the bullshit and now you're actually having a
You're
conversation.
You're having a
Yes.
one-on-one conversation
Yeah.
where you can fully, determine if you're really batshit crazy or you're actually, you have, good valid plans.
Right.
Um,
And that's one of the things I really like about podcasts because
absolutely.
it's a forum for that.
Yeah, no,
You know?
I completely agree. And I mean, we've actually touched on different things. We've touched on pharma. We've touched briefly on politics and personal opinions about, getting an eggs whacked. And this is hypothetical. I won't actually do it.
Future husband,
saying.
beware.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
I'm just saying, it's one of those things that, no. But it's there are many. The whole point is that there are many different opinions, and we've had pretty much a good discussion in good faith, and we've discussed educated. I hope educated individuals on a couple of things that I don't think that the mass audience knows. But their opinions, and they should be respected. You don't have to agree with everything I say. You don't have to agree with everything. I don't have to agree with everything you say or you say.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, it's about being respectful. And I think that is something that we as a society are not remembering, or we're just so focused on not being offended or getting offended and automatically turning it into an attack.
Yeah.
That we forgot that we can coexist with differences of opinion, and that's what makes this country and the world and society a better place to live in, because we can understand people differently. Most people wouldn't know that I'm more on the conservative side. Most people would probably go like, what? And that's okay.
Well, you mean at first glance, like before they get to know you, or at this point, like up to this point?
Up to this point, I'm more than confident. Most people did not know that I am.
I didn't know it.
Yeah,
no,
me neither.
I'm it's one of those things that because you are an entertainer, you're automatically told that you're not told, but it's almost as people condition you to, well, if you're an entertainer, you must be on the left side of
you're
things.
an artist.
Yeah.
You're an artist. Like, how can you, the universe provides, and you just sit there.
Yep.
That's not how I've been raised, and that's not how I perceive art. Like I said, I dance whenever I want to. And that's just the way that I've approached dance. I have lately what I like to call a love-hate relationship towards dance, mainly because timing to me is very important. I'm a busy person. And so when I'm dancing, I choose to just dance for the sake of relaxation, or is there a charity event that I can, give my time to? That to me is a lot more rewarding than, trying to make a profit out of it.
Yeah.
Granted, I am also lucky enough to be, to have a job that's lucrative enough that allows me to be highly selective of what I want to do and not to do. When you are an entertainer, and this is what many people forget about, is that you don't necessarily have all that luxury unless you have made it to stardom. When you're an entertainer, depending on what you do, your body is your business. And because your body is your business, you are, everything that you do is it needs to come from you. It's a service. I'm dancing, I get money. I need to put it to XYZ. How many gigs am I doing? How many events am I booking? What am I doing? Do I have another side gig that helps me pay for the rent? If you are a full-time performer, you don't have things made easy, but that's also a choice.
Yeah.
I chose to do both. Would I love in an ideal world, would it be amazing if I could, be a performer the way that I've seen so many of my friends? Yeah, absolutely. But I also like money.
I like not worrying about the rent.
And I don't want to worry about the rent. Because I know where it's coming from. And I think a lot of people forget about that. A lot of people forget about, how when you are an entertainer, you have to, you look at things differently. And because of that, I chose a different path. I chose the path where I do have a more secure job, because let's just face facts. You might book 5, gigs this week, but what is it guaranteeing you to book that for the next 2 weeks?
Right.
Or the next month.
Or the next month.
Exactly.
Or we have a recession.
Yeah.
And entertainment's the first thing to go.
And
with
entertainment is the first thing to go. So where's your money coming from to pay for the rent? Where's your money coming from to, pay for your insurance if you have any? So I also do see when entertainers also, pick, this side. I understand why they're liberal, because they're looking, not that they're looking, but it's hard enough being, your sole provider, but nonetheless being an entertainer and doing so that way. It's hard. It's, you know, I know a lot of friends who do it, and it's really hard. You have to constantly stay on top of the game to really make it to where you need to.
Right.
Some dancers are married, and, you know, because of that, they have the luxury of doing whatever gigs they want, whenever they want to. And they're bringing in money because they're popular, et cetera, and that's great. If you're a soul dancer, you know, I think that's really, you know, the mindset is just that, like, oh, well, if you're a dancer, then yeah, you can be more liberal, you know, the universe provides,
yeah,
so to speak. But it is, there's, you know, and I can, you know, really go into a whole lot more with that one, but it's just one of the things that I wanted to mention. Like, I chose to have a more lucrative career and then just do dance for what it makes me just happy and just to have fun with it.
Yeah, you love it.
I love dancing, but I don't live off it.
Right, I understand.
And that's, you know, that's the difference.
Yeah. So just for me, personal story, I went to college, I went to art school, and I've always been an artist, you know, drawing, painting sort of thing. And originally went to school for computer science, which is not artistic whatsoever. And the school ended up going bankrupt while I was still in school. And then I was like, oh, what next? So I was like, well, I that's the one thing I love to do. It doesn't feel like work. I just do it. I like to draw. I like to paint. I like to be creative. So I went to college for it. And there's a big difference between being an artist and being a paid artist, being a production artist or whatever it is. And I worked mostly in entertainment, like television production and marketing and advertising. And for me, after doing it for over 10 years, I realized that it didn't feel fun anymore. It didn't feel, it lost its charm. And the luster that I had originally of being creative was gone. It was just kind of like, it just changed a lot. And then I ended up changing careers for personal reasons. But now getting back to it, doing things like this podcast, where I can still be creative and still be artistic, but it's not, it's different. It's more the way we want to do it, Polly and I. And it's really awesome. It's a great feeling to get back to that. So just hearing your story about dancing and how you do it, not because it's lucrative. What we're doing is not lucrative. It may become that at some point, but it doesn't matter. That's the dog agrees with me. So it's just out of like the actual genuine love and passion for what we're doing. So that's awesome to hear a like-minded person say something similar.
And like I said, I chose to just do it for the sake of hello for the 15th time today.
She loves you.
I'm being squished.
Ayla, come over here, mama. She wants to be part of the show.
It's just, you know, people have views. People, you know, like I said, I love dancing. There's nothing more that throws me. You and I we went to a show recently. Okay, so I made her leave early.
It was really nice.
It was really nice, but then after a while, I said, okay, I'm done. I saw what I wanted to see. Now out, let's go.
We saw the best parts.
What show was this?
Is that Kimmel Center?
It was at the Kimmel Center, and it was for the Hispanic Heritage Month.
Oh yeah. It was like a free show or something, right?
The songs we left behind.
Yeah. It was really nice.
It was nice.
That's cool.
And I saw the part that I wanted to see, and I went, so I gotta go to work tomorrow in the morning. So you're leaving?
Like, what? I was like, wait, what? Yeah, that happened.
But I walked out, and I have a tendency that once I see what I want to see, or if I don't like something, I don't care if I purchase it, whether that be a movie, a fashion show.
Yeah, she walked out the fashion set too, Philly Fashion Week. She walked right out.
I walked out.
It's like, to me, if I pay my money, or even if I'm there, like, I'm gonna sit it through, because I'm nosy too. I want to know what's going on. I want to see. Yeah. But she was like, no, it's not entertaining. It's not nice.
Me and my friend, we just sat there, and she goes, do you want to leave? Because I was not even looking. At this point, I'm on my phone. I'm going, this is much better.
Yeah, you lost interest.
I lost interest. She goes, we don't have to stay. Now, you know what? You're right. Let's go.
There's my cue.
We left. And I'm one of those people. It doesn't matter if I pay for it. If I don't like it, I'm just going to walk out. It's like, I came, I'm not impressed, I'm out.
Yeah.
She's so cute. And it's so yeah, it's yeah. That's all I can say.
Oh, is she really bothering you?
No, she's not. She's just like she's
She
literally
leans.
completely leaning on me.
She doesn't like leaning things. She's heavy. You're a big girl.
She's just like, so I'm just gonna rest here.
Come on.
She's usually not that interested when we do the podcast.
Yeah,
she
she's
just
like
hangs
sitting
out on
up.
the couch.
She really likes you.
But yeah, and so I guess one of the things that I know that we had briefly discussed was that one article from the UK.
The trans
Yes.
thing.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's.
We had time.
How long have we
How long
been?
do we have?
What's our mark?
It is almost 9. What time do we start? 7. Oh gosh, we're at 2 hours.
There, we just did.
Whoa!
All right, so we.
This is so interesting.
Yeah, let's talk about this. We'll wrap.
It's
We'll
already
wrap it
been
up
2
with
hours.
that.
We might as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up
Okay.
with that.
So I had
bring it up.
read an article. I think it was by the Mirror. It's called. It's a news article, news company from I think the UK.
Okay.
And one of the things that I had it's an old article from earlier in this year, and that it resurfaced, because social media in rotation.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, let me just read this again. And it is a doctor in the UK that is stating that, transgender women at some point in the future should have the same right to, receive a uterus transplant.
This is
as a born
wild.
As a the same way that a naturally biologically born woman should.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I'll be very blunt about this. I'm not trying to shit on anyone who chooses to live their life the way they want to. What was baffling to me is that wait a minute, what?
That it's
Hold
even
up.
feasibly possible is kind of amazing.
Well, what they're saying is that the men's because regardless of the fact, men will always have shorter,
Oh
smaller
yeah,
hips.
your frame
hips, your frame
can only house.
Can
You're not
only-
meant to hold another human.
Yeah, not when it comes to the man, but they're saying that it is possible, even though that the frame to actually host or bear a child.
Yeah.
If they were to do the right connections to veins, et cetera, to make this work, it could be possible. What they will need to do is to also mitigate the transgender woman into having the same hormonal reactions that a natural woman, not a natural, but a born woman
Yeah.
would.
So basically, the idea is really quick for our viewers is that a transgender or transsexual person could possibly carry it and deliver or just
It would have to be
C-section.
It would have to be a C-section. They wouldn't be able to actually deliver, so they would have to perform a cesarean section.
But could carry a child to term and then through cesarean deliver the baby
And be a mom.
and be a mother. What? Like, I'm just like flashing back to the early 90s when I was a young kid, listening to New
Times
Kids
are
on the
simple.
Block or whatever I was doing on the stoop. I never in a million years would have thought. I think there was a movie with like Danny DeVito or something back in the day where he carried a child and it was like,
Oh my God! It wasn't then. No. It was.
was it the Arnold Schwarzenegger?
It was Arnold Schwarzenegger. Oh
Was
my
it twins? Or
No, it wasn't twins, but it's close enough.
Yeah. But the idea was so far fetched, and now
I can't
It's
remember
not.
that.
it's just out on the horizon.
Yeah, and that's what they were saying. That I went, so really?
Yeah. So what about all the? Go ahead. I'll let you kind of.
No, okay. So you know what? Because they're saying that right now, transgender women are only able to have a child via adoption, surrogate, or foster.
Right.
Which and don't get me wrong, I will say this the same way about women. There are women out there that do not deserve to have kids. Let's just call it for what it is. What it is.
Absolutely.
There's some women out there that do not deserve to have children, or should have a cap. Like if you have 2, that should be your limit,
Like, that's all you can
depending on who
handle.
you are.
Yeah.
Depending on your
If
kids,
you're just having kids to collect more money from the government,
then you
and there
need
are
to
women that
stop.
do that shit,
There are.
they need to stop.
You need to stop at 2. Like
Yeah.
the first one I forget because it happens. The second time you go, just.
Mm-hmm. And there's also a ton of children that need to be adopted,
that need loving homes, that need a loving parent, and I'm all for it. But it almost, and I don't know if it makes sense what I'm saying, it almost made me feel like so a woman is no longer special because a uterus can now be transplanted.
Yeah. I mean,
it's like it's a very hard conversation to get into, and granted that this article was coming mainly from physicians that specialize in this industry, to make these changes possible, which I do commend their work, because it takes a lot of knowledge and knowing what to do to make it happen. But at the same point, this is something that I was born to do. This is biologically,
it's a gift from God.
Is my given right to biologically do this. And so I wonder if, you can't stop it from happening. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Science will at some point make it happen. If
it sounds like it's going to happen.
But at the same time, it's just like, I am a woman, so...
Hear me roar.
Remember
that? But putting it on the same transplant list, that's what I...
And putting it on the same, like I said, on the same, like, that transplant list is like...
Yeah. That's a little questionable.
That's a bit questionable.
I think it's kind of like science playing God a little bit too. Absolutely. It's not natural. I mean, I'm sure the trans people would disagree with me, because they're like, for example, our guest Christy believed that she wholeheartly believes that she's a woman trapped in a man's body.
And you know what? And to that, I always say I'm no one to point the finger at someone like who you mentioned, because we don't know, I know I'm heterosexual, you're heterosexual.
I'm not too sure these days.
Oh, good.
No, I'm kidding.
Well,
I'm kidding.
Are you binary or curious?
Oh my God! I mean, there's so many different versions. I started to question things. I'm like, wait a minute, sir.
Gender queer.
Yeah, that's a thing. There's like 21 different.
It's unbelievable.
There was more. We looked
up. Too many, and I can't keep track. So I'm just gonna stick to the basics.
Yeah.
But long story short, like, by all means, might be very well, that's it, if that's what you feel at the core of yourself,
right?
No one can change your mind, and no one can make you feel any different, because that's how you feel, that's how you perceive your life,
right?
I think the argument for me comes from just being that person who, I was born a woman and I know what I have, and now you're saying that you have the same rights as another woman who may have problems conceiving, or was actually not born with a uterus, and now that you have the same rights to be in the same list, as someone who really, it's kind of hard for me to really wrap my head around that.
It's a strong argument for sure.
So that was an interesting regard. I think the article was first released back in February.
Of this year? So it's recent. I mean, it's definitely something to look into. I'm curious about it just because of the science and the technology it's going to take to actually do something like that. I mean, it's amazing that it's even possible. And then I started thinking, well, what does that mean? Oh, there she goes.
We don't need that.
Does that mean that a man could possibly impregnate himself?
No.
I think you would have to change hormones. It would take a while.
No, because technically speaking, obviously through the entire process, you change hormones to really feel as a woman.
Yeah.
So
that, I'm assuming, is no longer there.
Right. Well,
but you can get it before and then save it. Right?
Yeah.
You could. I mean, like an in vitro
just save your sperm. But would that be considered incest? Would there be issues with the DNA being similar?
I would definitely say, I mean,
it's identical.
We make jokes about Alabama, but there's someone probably that's married to their cousin somewhere.
That's like a Florida thing.
So plants.
This ain't right.
Certain plants can can, like plants that pollinate and produce seeds can actually hermaphrodite and self-pollinate. Cannabis does that. Wink. And the way it works is, so the female plants produce pistils and trichromes, which are like these sort of sticky things. And then the males produce the pollen. The females collect the pollen and do their thing. So when there's no males around to produce pollen, the females actually will hermaphrodite and start to produce both and then can self-pollinate. And that's what that made me think of. I'm like, well, if a man could carry a child in his body, could he impregnate? Whatever.
Like, can I freeze my sperm? And
right.
It's probably possible in the future.
It's
Maybe.
wild.
Who knows? It's wild, but it's
some
interesting.
wild shit, man.
But then, like genetically, how would it affect them?
That exactly.
Yeah.
Like, what is they need to
modified
that?
That's a GMO kid.
There would have to be some issues there.
Yeah, and I mean, octopus are asexual, so
what they do?
What? They're what?
They are asexual.
So how do they procreate?
They can do it themselves.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
See, I didn't know that.
I believe that they can do.
How?
They can do both. And I'm like, someone out there is going, you know what? That's a good plan. That's a good
Yeah, like I like my DNA the most. Let's just duplicate it.
I make best DNA ever.
I mean, it kind of. Well, I guess you would still need this. Well, for humans, you would still need the sperm.
Yeah.
But women have been arguing for years that men are unnecessary. Like, we're just.
I mean, just go to a sperm bank, collect the best sample, just say, no, put it in, and then I'm out.
Yeah, there's more than enough sperm out there to keep the generations going for a while.
Yeah, I mean, this is like donations. Like, you know what? I'm accepting donations. I want a kid. You don't have to be involved. Let's just call it for what it is.
Yeah.
I will never see you again. Here's your waiver.
Women produce all the people. All of the humans on Earth have come from women.
We do. We reproduce, and some people just need not to produce.
Yeah, that's true. There are some people out there that should probably take the pill or use protection.
Ever. Like, can you snip it? Can you snip
snip
it, cut it off? Whatever it is that you need to do, just don't procreate because it hurts. And
would your ex-husband by any chance be on that list?
No. One, never married. Two,
he's dead.
I'd probably chop it off myself, but that's See, this is what I always say, and this is off the topic. Lorena Bobbitt did it wrong.
She's the one that cut off and then threw it on the side of the road.
Wait. What is she? Wait, I don't know her.
You don't remember Lorena Bobbitt?
No.
Oh, come on.
Lorena Bobbitt apparently was being abused by her husband. Okay. And one night, in the middle, I guess, of fourth abuse or whatever, I think he was sleeping, and she just went with the knife and she just went...
Cut his dick off.
Good.
Cut it off.
Cut his dick off.
She did it wrong, though. She did it wrong because she went in the street. Like, you gotta get rid of the evidence.
Wait, did she get in trouble for that?
I think she threw it on the side of the road, right?
Or in a trash can or something. She did something. And I remembered sitting at my parents' house.
Don't get any ideas, Polly.
And I remember, sitting at my parents' house and going, my family saying, this is the women, saying, she did it wrong. You don't keep the evidence laying around like that for it to be found. You gotta get rid of that stuff.
Well, garbage disposal, maybe?
They thought garbage disposal, blender, feed it to a dog.
Oh my god.
Oh. The dog would probably eat it.
The dog would probably eat it. The dog is what said, I'm hungry. Well, off topic because I know that we were way over time. But always look up this article of a man that was running naked away from the police, and he literally chopped his own penis off and threw it at a cop. This is a true story.
Are you serious?
What kind of drugs was he on?
I would take a finger.
The strong kind.
Holy shit.
While he's running?
Apparently he has a... This is a... and he has a blade in his hand, and he just kept running.
Wow.
No,
he didn't do the knife.
No, I think as a cop, I'd be traumatized if the weapon this is the weapon, it's a penis in my face.
Yeah, I'd stop chasing him.
You know what?
Get away.
This reminds me of a story. I think it was, speaking of Wu-Tang Clan, I think it was Wu-Tang or it was one of the members of Wu-Tang, tried to commit suicide. He hung himself. This is a crazy story. He hung himself in his bathroom. Before he hung himself, he castrated himself. He cut his penis off. Then he hung himself and failed. His friends found him, and he survived.
gosh.
So now he's in the hospital, still alive.
No dick.
No dick. Woo! What a story.
You're just laying there
That's
He's like, so I'm still alive? Can I get my dick back?
no, we're going to put it in a museum.
It's the worst failed attempt ever.
There's actually a museum in Center City, Philly, the Mutter Museum?
Yeah.
Mutter Museum? Yeah.
I actually live, 2 blocks from it.
Oh, okay, yeah, they got some weird stuff in there, man. Like, they have things of that nature, I think, actually. Like, yeah.
It's interesting.
It is.
They probably have, some weird phalluses collected.
And a lot of, brains and all that, and skulls.
But also, genitalia.
It's
just
Yeah.
floating in,
Jars.
embalming fluid or whatever.
You just look at me and go, well, that's a small one.
Hey, it's cold in there, all right?
It's a museum.
I don't know. I guess it was average by the time you just put it back together.
People were smaller back then.
Were they?
Yeah, people were short. Back in the day, people were small.
Well, but that's like saying every short man is a small penis.
I think it's proportional.
I don't know.
That's not true.
I heard Shaq. I heard that Shaquille O'Neal, the basketball player, is 7'3", 400 pounds. His ex-wife wrote a book, and she said he's pretty average.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
That's
but then
sad.
again, when you're that big, if you've got a 12-inch penis, it probably looks tiny.
Exactly, but no one's also having sex with you. I'm sorry, nobody's having sex with 12
But also, she's his ex-wife, so maybe she's
she's
bitter.
this tall.
Yeah.
She's literally this
Yes.
tall. She's tiny.
Beautiful woman, by the way, but yeah,
She
she's.
gave him how many kids?
I don't know. Can
Oh
you
man,
imagine having
imagine!
to bear
Oh
his
God,
kids?
yeah.
Poor
She
girl.
gave him a couple.
Well, this is the thing.
Cesarean, I'm guessing.
This is the thing about athletes. Basketball players, football players, they tend to date models and things like that, or just beautiful women, and a lot of them are small women. They're not tall. The athlete is. They're not a typical human being,
Yeah.
right? But when they have a child with an average size human, they're not going to produce another athlete. Mm-hmm. They would need to have a kid with someone else who's big.
Giant.
Well, part of that is that statistically, taller men are more attracted to shorter women.
Yeah.
That's a natural
Yeah.
thing. Taller men for some reason just like shorter women. And I don't know why, because they're deadly ninjas.
They are. We were just talking about that. Why is that?
It's the temper. I was
It's like Napoleon.
Yeah.
It's like a Napoleon complex.
Deadly.
And if you're Latina, then
It's
you're
even worse.
mature.
Oh yeah.
You matured faster because of the heat, so that makes you extremely hot tempered. But yeah, is one of those things that I remember listening to, the whole dating scene, and this, it's not a different conversation, but you should probably look this up, what white men are attracted in when it comes to women that are not their same ethnicity, in tall men that really short women, and it's more apparently the level of protectiveness that they feel when they have someone, and I'm that's kind of deceiving. You're assuming that a woman that's 5'2", 5'1" cannot defend herself. You'll be surprised.
Yeah.
They're probably better than someone taller.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely. You could just slip right under the legs, whoop, and just get out of Dodge.
And just cut it off where you're going,
He's
right?
Oh, I didn't mean that, but yeah, if you want to go there.
There's just many things that but those that's something that maybe if you guys want a good topic, that might be something that you guys can look into. It's
absolutely.
really interesting.
Yeah, you should.
But yeah,
I mean, you're not extremely tall. You're kind of what are you, 5? Yeah, 5'8".
I'm tall.
I'm 6'6".
so you're
So
my uncle's height.
yeah,
My uncle's 6'7".
yeah.
How tall are you?
It's not easy being tall.
I'm 5'1".
Aw.
Shorty.
She's like, oh,
I love it.
you're so cute, Selena.
When you dance, and we were talking about this, when you dance, you look like
Yeah.
dance your
People say
body.
that.
Yeah, when I
Yeah.
saw your videos, I thought you were 5'10", 5'9", 5'10".
And it's thank you, because now I feel like you're disappointed in me.
No, not at all. It's just a surprise.
No, it was something that was because you get up and you finish dancing and you get off a stage or whatever, and then people go, "You look so much taller."
Are you wearing heels and stuff?
No, I'm barefoot.
Oh,
and people
okay.
go, "Wow, you're really tiny." And I go,
Thanks.
"Sorry, I disappointed you." Like I'm sorry, like I'm a complete failure.
Yeah.
And they go, "No, I'm joking with them." But it's the whole point is like, this is what you get.
Yeah.
This
I
is
think
what
when
you
you're dancing as a dancer, like you elongate your body, like you perform.
Yeah.
So it's
and I mean,
you're on stage.
it's really funny to hear like the many comments like, "Oh my god, she's so tiny."
Do you find that taller men are attracted to you, like the men that approach you?
Men are afraid to approach me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Are they're intimidated?
I've heard.
Really? You're so
Why do you
friendly
think
though
that
and
is?
welcoming. Like you're an extremely nice person.
She's real.
Here.
Yeah, you're real.
She's real. And
No,
she's raw.
I'm pretty much like I call things for what they are, whether they like it or not.
Yeah, I got you.
And don't get
That's
me
a great
wrong,
quality,
you know,
though.
Like I walk into a place and I'm not in the mood to be bothered. That's one of them. Like if I'm
Yeah.
with friends, I'm with friends. Do not walk up to me. And I've done not horrible things because I'm not that kind of a person, but I've certainly said things that make guys go,
Yeah,
well,
sure,
damn. And they just walk away. It's like, don't try it. Leave me alone.
Okay.
And so, I mean, I applaud the guy that looks above the surface and goes, she's easy. Don't worry about it. She'll be fine. Like, she'll be friendly to me. If a guy actually dares talk to me, I'm impressed because for the most part, I'm just like, nobody's gonna talk to me, so I'll be fine. I can read my little tablet here.
Yeah, but also in this day and age, men are not approaching women as much as they were.
They're not, and well, that's also because we have
Dating
all
apps and all
the
this shit, yeah.
apps that make it so much more. There's a good thing about it. There's a bad thing about it. The good thing about it is that you are able to see your options. Way too many of them.
Yes.
Which also creates a level of complication because now we have this whole thing FOMO,
Yep,
the fear
exactly.
of missing out.
Fear of
like
missing
you
out.
have the one girl that she's really cool and she's all these things that you like, but now you're like,
There might be somebody
I don't
better.
want to commit because I might actually see someone better. And I'm not saying that you're wrong, but perhaps the person that you wanted to build something better with,
Yeah.
you just let it go because you wanted something else. And so this huge level of lack of commitment, but it's mainly because you have too many options and you want to see what is the next best thing. And then one day you figure out that you're 40 years old and you're single and then you end up settling with Jesse.
Yeah. And
What's wrong with Jesse? Poor Jesse. Any Jesse's out
Okay,
there?
or you end up settling with Becky.
Karen.
And
Becky.
Becky's more than an average girl, and she's nothing that you ever thought about. But now you're like, I'm in a rush, and the musical chairs are empty. I just need to grab one.
Just settle.
They do, and you settle. And now you're in your 40s, marrying a woman that you have nothing in common with, and you have kids with her.
That's
And now you're really stuck because nobody wants to start over at 50.
yes.
It's so true. That's true.
And that's something that at least within my family, and this, like I'm a firm believer of I'm not in a rush, and I'm pretty much in my mid-30s, and I'm nowhere near be a rush. You have to be selective. Selecting a partner is not just, is it a good parent, but it's a good partner to you.
Absolutely.
And if you cannot find both in one, then you gotta keep on going because there's a very small number of people out there.
Yeah, I agree.
So
Do you do the dating sites, the dating apps?
I've done the dating apps, and it's been disastrous.
Everybody has that one disaster story.
Oh no, I've had a couple.
Do you want to? Do we have time? You want to tell us one?
We're like at 2.5 hours, but this is good. Let's go.
Well, let me ask you this, Polly. Do we have any questions from the chat that we want to ask?
We're like, okay, so we can go back.
Do you want to do that? Okay, we could either do
I
that.
really want to hear this.
Yeah, me too. Me too. What are the questions? Are the questions any good?
They're I think one was about farm, if cannabis industry was changing the farm industry. I think that was one of the questions.
The what?
The cannabis industry, if it was changing.
I can answer some of that actually. I'm very well educated on cannabis.
Yes, I mean,
I used to grow cannabis I can disclose that now, right? It's okay. This is back in the day. Yeah. But I like.
I mean, the remaining health. Like, listen, I've never in my life touched it.
Yeah.
I cannot even stand the smell of it, to be completely honest. But if you read enough, you know that there's actually plenty of benefits to cannabis. And
yes.
The reason why Colorado has actually legalized it is because they also saw a profit in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they tax the shit out of it.
They tax the shit out of it, but they've been able to pay for better schools. Like, a lot has happened because they actually made it legal.
Yes. Absolutely.
And I think that was the initial problem with cannabis. And not to take away from you, but it's the whole point that if you aren't one of those individuals who's just looking at cannabis from this angle and you're not seeing the actual benefits of it.
Right. The medicinal, you mean.
The medicinal benefits of it, then you're fooling yourself. You know, is available at dispensaries in Pennsylvania for treatments for a reason.
Yes. And there are, you can extract compounds from cannabis that are non-psychoactive. It doesn't necessarily have to get you high.
Yeah, it was just THC and which is...
Well, there's THC, which is tetrahydrocannabinol. There's CBD, which is cannabidiol. And then there's others as like CBN.
Okay.
But they all have different benefits.
Yeah.
The CBD is really beneficial for people that have seizures and things like that. Or, I mean, even the THC is helpful for people who are maybe
pain, post-cancer patients.
Yeah, help with sleep, help with diet, help with just the the feeling of hunger. You get the munchies or whatever.
Yeah.
It helps for some of these cocktail medications people are on takes away their appetite. So there's like a whole slew of things. But even besides that, I mean, you can make furniture, you can make building materials. In the 50s, Henry Ford made an entire car out of cannabis.
Did he?
Yes.
That's interesting.
And it even ran off of hemp fuel, which is basically like a biodiesel sort of thing. But the entire vehicle, from the paint to the body panels to, I mean, other than the engine was steel. But yeah, I mean, there's a ton of things. The prohibition on cannabis was really started by the paper industry in 1936. I think it was like 1936 or something like that. And that was because the benefits of growing hemp and the hemp fibers, you can easily make paper. And a cannabis plant grows a lot more rapidly than a tree.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's more sustainable. You can use the seeds to feed chicken. You can use the oils for lubrication, for food. The list literally goes on and on. You could do your research and see all the benefits.
This is what people also need to learn, and people also need to know this. Like, people say, oh, it's a pathway drug. What the fuck, it's not.
I mean, I guess it can be, though.
It could be if you have the intentions of getting into that way.
Right.
If you're just looking to, have a good time, or just relax with your friends, or just really, truly be medicated, you have the decision, and it's like, it's not a path. I think that the mentality or the mindset is what really kind of just starts derailing you into another.
Yeah. And the stigma.
And the stigma that comes across with it. Like,
yeah.
Oh my God, like, you must be a pothead. You must live to nothing. I'm sorry, the smartest
You're lazy.
People,
There's all
you're
these.
lazy, like, the smartest people I know. Yeah.
The potheads.
Yeah. It was funny when, I was talking about Joe Rogan, the podcaster. He had Elon Musk on his show. Tesla, SpaceX. Yes,
I remember that.
And he smoked a little bit of weed, and he got flamed. No, he didn't get canceled. He's good. But I mean, he got some backlash. Like I think the stocks dropped a little bit, and a couple of things happened.
But he didn't apologize for that. I recall he was like, "Whoa, it made me feel chilled."
Yeah. Smoked a little bit of weed. He's a grown man. And they were in the state of California where it's recreationally legal. So It wasn't breaking the law or anything like that. So
people just need to stop being so damn uptight about certain things.
Yeah. But the issue I have with cannabis in the pharmaceutical industry is they're synthesizing a lot of things. And the raw plant matter is really I think the best form of cannabis. Once you synthesize it, then you're getting into, it's just a whole different ball game. But you can't, you're not going to have a big pharma lab growing 20,000 plants. They're going to do it chemically. They're going to match the molecular structure and such of the plant and turn it into a pill. And that kind of takes all the magic out of what the plant is, because it is kind of a magical plant.
It is, and I've you know, I know so many friends, some that need it, you know, prescribed, and they see a difference.
Yeah,
You know, they actually feel better. There's no actual, or just like, you know, mitigates and minimizes that pain, so that's there, but you're not really agonizing over it. And
exactly.
you know, like, just do it in its natural form. And the same, like, at least with, you know, cannabis, that's how I see it. Like you said, you're right. Like, synthesizing it just becomes a bit of you're getting a watered down version of your pill.
Yeah.
You're not really, and then they say, take 15 a day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, you know, when you can just, you know, have it so, you know, easily and readily accessible, you know, by your local dispensary, or just decriminalize the damn thing already.
Yeah, I agree.
Just do.
I
think
agree.
they're going to make money off of it. That's what
They would. I mean, if you look at Colorado as an example of, and again, they're taxing the shit out of it, but at the same time, look at what good has also come out of it. I think that people just need to just back down a little bit.
It's coming.
It is.
It's coming. It's just a matter of time.
Any other question?
No, I think that was it.
Or people are just commenting like she's crazy.
No, only love, which is awesome. It's like really, there's a lot of like just discussion.
Okay.
Stuff. Yeah, but no other questions, I don't think. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. If I missed something, like, re-enter your question.
Okay.
People who are listening to me.
They're probably like going in there like, oh, the girl that spoke, she's a little crazy.
No.
No, I think this was an
and the things you talked
incredibly,
about were awesome.
yeah, this was a really informative podcast.
Yeah,
And thank you so much for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Is there anything that you want to close the show with? If you want to shout out, like if you want to give out your social media or anything you got going on coming up as far as the dance stuff or anything, if you want to promote.
No, so pretty much if you want to learn more about me, I will eventually have an Instagram account. It won't be called under Dellaneira. I won't do that because I do also do art.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to just find the right name so that I can eventually create my Instagram account.
It's important.
It's important, you know. I just want to keep it as open as possible. But if you want to learn more about Middle Eastern dance, I do have a Twitter account, Dellaneira Racks. And I do also have a Facebook page or account called Dellaneira Racks. And you can find me on Facebook. You connect with me on Facebook, and I'm more than happy to, you know, answer any additional questions that you may have in terms of dance. More than happy to.
Awesome.
Can you spell that? It's RAQS, right?
Oh, my name is Solange.
Spell it out.
I
So
had
people
to
can
like
find
look
it.
at it in my mind and then actually spell it out. So it's like Dellaneira. So it's DELLAEIRA, and then Racks as in RAQS. That is, you know, where you can find me. And I think that I have the account set up so that anyone can actually send me a friend request.
Awesome.
Other than that, you know, shout out to my mom because I believe that she was listening to the podcast.
Oh, awesome.
I think she listened to it live. I sent it to her. I'm not sure she, you know, logged in or not. She has a new iPhone, so.
That's okay. If she doesn't catch it live, it will be available on YouTube, you know, right after this is done. And then also iTunes and all the podcasting platforms. So she'll hear it.
She'll be able to hear it. It's just like, I want to hear it.
That's so
awesome.
sweet.
No, but she wanted to, you know, hear what I had to say, and she goes, "I'm proud of you," and I'm like, "Oh, thank you."
She should be.
She should be. This was an awesome episode.
Thank you
But
so
no,
much for
I
coming
had
on.
a blast, and thank you for inviting me, and you know, thank you for like being very open-minded. I think that you guys are doing something fantastic. I think that the platform here and being able to, you know, have an open discussion without really being judged or just listening to someone else's different perspective is extremely, you know, important because we're losing that.
Yeah, in this generation, I think totally losing it.
You know, we're really losing that right to just really speak our minds without being attacked, and it's nothing to do with denigrating another human being. It's just, you know, educate yourself, and by all means, and I will always close this, stop putting your votes on politicians that at the end of the day only give a shit about your vote.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well
like, stop
said.
arguing. Like, just stop the arguments over a politician that gives two shits about you. Let's just call it for what it is. They don't care. If you can show me a politician that genuinely cares, fine. But until that moment comes, educate yourself so that you know at least where your vote is going to.
Absolutely.
Whether it is your party or not. Because they do not care. At the end of the day, you're only a number to get them closer to winning an election. And that's all I have to say.
All right. Dellaneira, thank you so much for coming on the show.
I get a hug.
Oh, she gets a hug. And so if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to the channel, comment in the comment section below. We'd love to hear what you have to say about this episode. And we'll see you again on Friday or Monday and next Wednesday. And we'll let you know who the guest is going to be next week. Not just yet, though. So, so thank you so much for tuning in to Human
Collective.
All right. Bye, guys. See you guys. Bye-bye.